Hello, YouTube. Welcome to Dark Tower Palaver. We are here for a book club, number 18 on the Wastelands. I don't think I guess our normal intro is that this is a podcast, so don't expect a short video here. We're going through recording our podcast live here for everyone, so we can have people here in the chat with us and all that fun stuff. So, we have some fun stuff ahead, right?
Your camera needs to go up a little bit. Can't see your lights.
No, I know.
Oh, you don't want to see the lights?
No,
you want
yeah.
the red tint,
Yeah.
the evilness of Tad.
No, I'm a lovable character. I'm not evil. I don't know what this...
Then why is it red and mine's blue? Like, it seems very on the nose here.
Hey, only one lightsaber slaughtered children. It wasn't red.
It was wielded by someone who wields a red lightsaber as soon as he, figures his shit out.
So let's go ahead and hit the old intro and get started on this great episode. It's going to be some maybe not so fun stuff this episode in terms of the stuff we're covering is not necessarily the most joyous of things, but I guess that happens. So let's hit the intro and get started.
The Dark Tower by Stephen King. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. Go then. There are other worlds than these. Death, but not for you, gunslinger. It's time we had our own palaver, I think, and it's going to take a while.
And yet, dauntless, the slug horn to my lips I set, and blew. Child Roland, to the Dark Tower came.
We are content, one from many. Let the palaver begin.
Hello and welcome to Dark Tower Palaver. This is our podcast covering Stephen King's magnum opus, The Dark Tower series. My name is Tad.
And I'm Peter.
And we're here for book club number 18 for the Wastelands.
Wastelands can vote.
Yeah.
Yay. It's an adult now. And we're about to get to some very adult stuff.
Yeah, indeed. And in fact, before we even, all right, let's just we'll dive into the intros and I'll go through the calendar stuff. So first of all, we don't have to worry about spoilers because this is a book club. We're going to keep all of our spoilers to the very end. You will have both a visual and an audio cue when we get to the spoiler section at the very end. So if you're not finished with the 7 primary books, this is a safe episode up until that point. But it'll be hard to miss when we move into that section. So next up, if you want to find us, you can find us on Apple Podcasting, stream us on Spotify or Stitcher or any podcasting service. If you want to subscribe, rate, and review us on any of those, we appreciate that. On the YouTube side, we're here at youtube.com/darktowerpalaver. If you can like, subscribe, and...
Like, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notification for when we go live.
I watch so many YouTube things that I drone that shit out. So, in terms of the YouTube stuff, I gotta get better on the YouTube host thing. But yes, definitely, and we love having you here on YouTube. We love having people here in the live chat with us, being part of the conversation. It's an awesome thing. We did I can't remember how many years ago it was now when we did our first live show, and it was really fun, and we had those just every so often. But once we went to this full time being live with our recording, it's been awesome, and I love having people with us. So if you want to be part of that, like and ring the bell and all that stuff. We'll be here every fortnight recording an episode, and you can come join us live or listen and watch after the fact if you'd like. Then if you want to find the show notes, you can do that at darktowerpalaver.com. We don't really have anything for book club episodes, but for the roundtables, we have everything. Plus, we have our new questions for new listeners and pretty much everything Dark Tower Palaver you can find over there and find links to. So you can, that's kind of like probably the hub of the Dark Tower Palaver universe is the website to go find all the links you need.
You should just do every book club. You should just do a link to the Audible books and the Amazon how to buy that book set.
Yeah, I think I did that for like 2 episodes, and it got kind of old because it's like Really? So not a whole lot for this episode. Next, and then last up here on my side, we have the Patreon. If you want to become part of the Patreon community, you can do that, patreon.com/darktowerpalaver. And with that, we have our Discord chat, which you can interact with us all week between episodes, as well as we have monthly hangouts. We just did Creepshow last time, so if you wanted to watch along with Creepshow with Peter, which is always fun to watch Peter, especially that the crate episode, portion of Creepshow.
What's it called? Fluffy? No.
Yeah, Fluffy.
No, that's what you call it.
No, that's its
Is it
name.
really?
Cuddles is what it should be called.
Cuddles is what it should be called. That's
Yeah,
what you
it
say.
is Fluffy. So if you want to do that, you can support the show over there at patreon.com/darktowerpalaver. Then if you want to contact us, Peter can let you know the ways to do that in the more traditional fashion.
Best way to reach us is through email. It's darktowerpalaver@gmail.com. And then our social media is Dark Tower Pod. That's at Dark Tower Pod, P-O-D, on Twitter. Our Facebook is facebook.com/darktowerpalaver. Instagram is Dark Tower Palaver, all one word with no spaces in there. And then check out our merchandise. It's tpublic.com/user/darktowerpalaver. You got two different patterns you can go from. You can go for the classic boring one like Tad's wearing, or you can go for the truth, which is mine, which says #Tad is terrible, which
Slander.
is also true.
Slander.
No, it's not. I mean, if you want me to bring up the conversation for before we went on the air, I will absolutely do it to prove that it is not slander.
Well, is it a spoiler? I don't even remember
No,
what
it's
I
not a
said.
spoiler. The joke was Tad showed me some horrible picture of a creature from a movie, a werewolf.
The Howling.
The Howling,
Great movie.
specifically. And he's like, see, I should have access to stuff like this. And I'm like, no, you shouldn't. This is why you're not allowed to become a billionaire. Because if you did, you'd buy me a house, and I'd be like, all right, what's wrong with it? And you'd be like, nothing. And I'd be like, I don't believe you.
Oh.
See, that is why you're terrible. It's because you would buy me a house. You know that I want a house.
Oh, and not only would I
everything.
buy you a house, I'd build it from the ground up, and there'd
Yep.
be all kinds of trap doors and things that would
You'd
open
have
up.
like
and,
you'd have like a control room where you're just like, I'm gonna go fuck with Peter. You'd go in the control room and you'd have levers that would drop down like bugs onto me, and have a button that just puts up a howling outside of my house where it just
or Fluffy from Creepshow.
yeah.
You know, that'd be great. Symbol monkeys all over the place. You know, all the
See, the thing is that I don't know if you're saying that you would actually have real monkeys when you say Fluffy, or if you would have like a person dressed up as Fluffy, or just like a doll like Fluffy. See, all three of those are possibilities with you because you are so terrible.
that's a matter of opinion. But yeah, let's jump on over to the calendar where you have this episode, and then we are back in a fortnight for Roundtable 127. And then the other thing is I actually divided things out for the rest of this chapter. We are in the middle of chapter 5 currently, which is titled Bridge and City. And we will be finishing this chapter in March 25th, 2023, if everything goes to plan. And not only that, but as I kind of decided to go look through the end of it, it actually looks like there's only one episode past that. So we will actually be finishing up this book the second episode of April. And then that means that the May episode, May 20th, if the way things are all lined up the way that, if everything works out the way that they should, we'll be starting Wizard and Glass. So, yeah, that's exciting. And I also went back and looked. We started this book in September of 2020. So,
It's really been 2 years since we started it.
yeah, see, I think I actually screen grabbed something. Let me go and see if I can find it. So once we have finished this book, it will have taken us 2 years, 6 months, 3 weeks, and 6 days. I mean, of course, episode-wise, the way it works, that's not exactly right. But it
Yeah.
will have taken us basically 2.5 years to get through this book. So
Oh, geez.
that'll be interesting to think about how
Book 4's even longer.
yeah, 4's longer, 5's long, 6 a little bit smaller, and then 7's pretty long. So
7's up there.
Yeah.
7's up there in like top 5 king length, isn't it?
yeah, I think it is. So
shit.
yeah, just figured since I actually divvied all that out, I figured I'd let everyone know kind of what the schedule looks like, because we were debating that last time. I think we were even questioning whether we get through this book next year entirely. But yes, it
And
looks
that
like
is-
we will.
That is taking into account the new structure that we're going to here in the end of the year, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Have we announced that?
Yeah, I think we have, because we've talked.
I think we've talked
yeah.
about it, but I don't think we've actually announced that it's happening the end of this year, not next year.
Yeah.
Is that it's going to go from a 2-to-1 ratio where it's round table, book club, 2 round tables, and then a book club, to where it's 1 round table, 1 book club, once per month. Right?
Yeah.
Every fortnight.
other.
Every
now,
fortnight.
Now, with that, the only caveat to that is as if there is a Mike Flanagan Dark Tower series announced, which I'm just putting that out in the universe right now. If that were to be announced, we could always.
Yes, it's obvious,
We could
obviously
always-
subject to change.
Yes,
It's always the little asterisk subject to change.
Yes, exactly.
Josh says in the chat, cheers, guy, at a bear festival. Can't stay. Just wanted to say, hey, long Disney Pleasant Nights. Thanks, Josh. Go have fun and have a beer for us.
Yeah, and go find the riddle contest and see if you could win the goose.
Yes. The Fair
See,
Day Goose.
That's what I would do if I was running a beer festival. There would be a riddle contest. Because there'd be at least one or two people there that might recognize the Dark Towerness of it. So yeah, that's what we have on the schedule going forward. But yeah, let's go ahead and dive in. So we are currently in book 3 of the whole series, titled The Wastelands, obviously. But inside of this, there's 2 books. We are in the second book. The book is titled Lud, and the subtitle of it is A Heap of Broken Images. And we are in chapter 5, subtitled Bridge and City. And we are starting off in subchapter 15.
Yep.
So where we left off, Gasher has gotten the best of our gunslingers, as there was obviously the whole ordeal on the bridge with a Billy Bumbler attacking a kid.
Stop it. Didn't attack anyone.
And so Gasher got the jump on them, had a grenade, was able to take Jake. He's taken off, and our gunslingers are basically left on the bridge, with Jake having been taken away by a pretty horrible-looking person, Gasher. And that's where we find ourselves here in subchapter 15.
Yep. So they get across the gap here, where obviously Oi slipped and Jake saved him, and then Eddie saved Jake, and then Roland saved all of them.
You're only recapping this because you're trying to
I'm putting
undercut.
the truth out there, not Oi attack Jake, you slandering fuck.
And it's funny because the YouTube video too, it will auto pick pictures, but then I can go in and pick between a couple of things, like it just
It
grabs
has
some
like
images.
a few different ones for you to
Yeah,
pick.
but the one it automatically picked was with the J. Jonah Jameson meme that I created up, and I left that on there because
You bastard.
that's awesome. So but yeah, go ahead, go on.
So they get across, and the very first thing is that Eddie jumps on Roland and asks him how the hell he could give up Jake like that. Roland tells him to hurry up and come on, and they bring the wheelchair as they're going to need it. They reach the far side of the gap, and they hear an explosion. Eddie turns white, and Roland tells him not to worry, as fellows like Gasher rarely get careless with their high explosive toys. I don't know why, but I like high explosive toys.
Yeah,
I like that. And it kind of makes me realize that Roland probably doesn't use many grenades and
no.
explosives and such.
But here's the thing: we know guns are relatively rare in this world.
Right.
So is gunpowder not necessarily rare? Because it seems like having grenades, it's just one of those things. Like, I don't know. It's not necessarily that undercuts the shortage.
Well,
like, there's not a lot of guns.
The ammo's also pretty scarce too. That's one of the things
Yeah.
that happened in book 2 is that Roland is pretty low on ammo.
Yeah.
He can't just go down, to Cabela's and buy a box of shells like we can.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so it's just interesting to me because, like, I don't know, because we know guns are short, but it's fun. It's interesting to see as the series goes on, we see different things like this.
Yeah.
We see a grenade here, and it's just one of those things that's like the nerdy part of me is like, not that I'm necessarily like trying to find like faults or like whatever inconsistencies, because I'm really not, but it just comes down to where it's like, well, we know guns are rare, but
yeah.
We're seeing
Mike
here.
says in the chat, gunpowder is relatively easy to make. So maybe that's what it comes down to, is that it's the gunpowder that's easy, but it's making the actual bullets that's hard. And then obviously guns, you have to be pretty good gunsmith to be able to make a gun.
yeah,
So
there's a lot of mechanics to it.
I mean,
so.
we both know that is that guns.
Yeah, I mean-
we've gone shooting and everything like that. So it's we know that it's not easy to make a gun.
Yeah, they're definitely mechanisms for
Yeah.
sure.
I've seen videos of people who have tried to make their own guns at home, and it does not end well. Fingers
Yeah.
go missing, hands get burned,
Yeah.
shrapnel goes flying. Yeah, it's not smart to do that.
Yeah, indeed. Let's see. Mike says, I tried to figure out if the name Lud meant anything. This is the one I think fits the best. Ned Ludd, inspiration for the Luddite movement. And yeah, that's only thing I thought of was Luddite. Like, that's
Yeah,
more what I came up with is when I heard it initially was Ludd. I thought Luddites, but I don't know if there's any other meaning to it.
I
than
can't
that.
think of anything else that it would be.
Yeah, but yeah, no, Mike. So you're right on kind of where I was finding my mind too. And then Spencer, welcome.
Oh, hi, Al Spencer.
Good to see you here with us. And then where you caught up there, Mike's says gunpowder is relatively
Yeah.
easy to make. Yeah, so and that's true, and it probably would be easier just to load some gunpowder into a small, cylindrical thing or whatever, and have some kind of thing to spark it. But
Yeah.
it's just one of those interesting things because I don't think we've seen a grenade up to this point in this world. So we've seen guns and stuff,
Yeah.
but not.
But also, this is a city. Who knows what's left over from before?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, there's bound to be lots of toys, as
Yeah.
one would say. But I just think it's interesting here that Eddie, of course, is doubting Roland again. Classic Eddie. We think he's grown past all this, but as soon as something goes down, he jumps all over Roland.
But see, no, I'm going to defend Eddie here though, because Roland and Susanna's on the harness.
Yeah.
So she's there when she hears Roland whisper to Jake, like, it's okay, I'll come for you.
Yeah.
Eddie's not privy to that. So I'm going to actually defend Eddie here a little bit and say,
He doesn't have all the facts.
Yeah, I don't think this is same old Eddie. I really think that Eddie is just kind of out of the loop here. He's the only one of the quartet that didn't really hear Roland say, like, that, whatever, like, there's only one way to go with this. And, of course, Eddie is more emotional. So I think if there's anyone that's going to be a less, pragmatic about it, because like Roland, everyone else, Susanna, I think she's a little bit more pragmatic as well, where she could probably see, even if she didn't hear Roland, he's got us over a barrel here. We're kind of fucked. Like, there's no way out of this except for letting Jake go and then trying to rescue him. So it's kind of a twofold thing. So kind of, you're right. I think it is kind of same old Eddie, but also part of it, I'm going to give him credit. He doesn't know all the information.
The funny thing is also that you point that out and it makes sense, because as soon as they get further down the on-ramp, off-ramp kind of thing, they're coming down off of the bridge.
Yeah.
They get near some tow booths. Eddie asks him if he knew Gasher was bluffing. Not that he was guessing, but he knew that Gasher was not bluffing.
Yeah.
I forgot to put the word not. And all Roland says is, he's a walking dead man, and such men don't need a bluff. So maybe that goes along the lines with it, because then also with that, just a little skip ahead, is that Eddie doesn't argue much here.
Yeah.
Like there's a
he
little...
he doesn't push the point.
He doesn't push the point. He doesn't do the classic Eddie where it's like, fuck you, and you just go railing on Roland for the whole time.
Yeah.
I think as soon as he gets some more information, like you're saying, he's not privy to all of it. You actually might be right about that, is that, oh, okay, this isn't actually the same old Eddie. It actually is him growing and showing trust for Roland. He has just rattled one. They just lost Jake, who they just barely got back a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
They almost fell off the bridge, which Eddie's terrified of heights, and then they hear the explosion as well.
Yeah.
That the grenade.
Yeah. And
went off.
Eddie is ultimately always going to be more emotional in his nature. That's
Always.
just that's his
how,
nature.
That's how
so.
he is. Yeah.
And I never hold someone's nature against themselves necessarily, but I just want to defend Eddie a little bit, which is weird.
That is very weird. What's going on here? Is this Bizarro Land?
This is Bizarro World. Yeah.
I'm not a fan of this. So after Roland says he's a walking dead man and such men don't need a bluff, Roland's voice has an undertone of bitterness and pain. He says that if they had seen him sooner, they wouldn't have stood him off since the exploding egg. I like that they call it he calls it an exploding egg. Wouldn't have mattered if they were out of its range. But that does also. I'm just going to stop there. Little thought just came to me just now, is that Roland doesn't know what a grenade is. If he's calling it an exploding egg, he wouldn't call it that if he knew what a grenade was.
Yeah.
So that goes back to your point, is that grenades are not widely known.
Yeah.
So there's that. He goes on saying that Gasher must think the reason they brought Jake is for safe passage through the city. He is so frustrated that he says, damn the luck, and strikes his own leg. Seeing Roland get visibly upset scares me more than the whole Gasher part in the last subchapter, where he takes Jake and makes him, start running and everything like that to start off with. One of those moments where if he is scared, we all should be scared.
Yeah.
That's what Roland has become for us, is that if he's scared, oh fuck.
Yeah.
So...
And it is pretty troubling that the way they interpret it is Gasher probably thought that Jake was basically brought as
a sacrifice.
Yeah, like currency.
Here, take him and we go.
Yeah, and it's like, honestly, if that's again, if nothing else, if there's anyone at this point that's still in Eddie's mindset of like wise elves or whatever, no, this city's not a great place. Like, if that's kind of the mindset. In the chat here, after the gunpowder is relatively easy to make, that's how Kirk defeated the Gorgon. I will say the original series is one of the few Star Treks I have not watched. I just can't get into the.
I've never been able to.
I can't get into that, but I know that I know that reference. I'm kind of aware of that episode a little bit. I didn't know he actually created gunpowder. And then Mike says, "Yep, Robert with diamonds, if I remember correctly. Yes, everything on the planet was laid out like a video game." So, even though I wasn't an original series fan, I am a Star Trek fan. I always kind of have been, but I'm more of a next gen kind of guy.
Yeah.
Captain Kirk is secondary to Picard for me.
Yeah.
That's kind of the one of the big debates there on that side. I don't know what it would be on the Star Wars side, like if there's a big fan debate on things.
Sith versus Jedi. I mean,
Yeah, I don't
that's
think.
kind of the,
Yeah, I mean,
red versus blue.
I don't know. That seems like a no-brainer to me. I mean, red lightsabers are so much cooler. But my note on what you just covered here,
Yeah.
I think this is unique. We saw Roland on the edge when he had his mind-splitting thing earlier on in this book. But beyond that, we have not really. We've seen him be very good with rolling with the punches. So to see him getting upset here does make me worry for Jake a bit. I don't know, because like, have we seen him get rattled at all? I mean, yes, there was the mind splitting thing, and there he was actually kind of on the edge. But outside of that, like, has there ever been a time that something exterior has caused Roland to kind of pause even? Like, I don't think so. Even like
not Detta, not Tull,
not Tull,
the
yeah.
speaking demon, not the Oracle in the ring,
Yeah.
not dropping Jake. He didn't blink. He
no,
didn't,
the lobstrosities, losing his fingers, the
Lobstrosities.
poisoning, any of the stuff that I mean,
None
there
of
were
that.
some times he was
Shardik?
there's times he was thrown off a little bit in our world by
Yeah.
whatever, but never at a time where he was just like, oh my God, I can't handle this. It was more of like oh my God, look at the size of this building, or like
Oh my God, we're flying.
or we're flying, like but overall, like, Roland's been very good with rolling with the punches. I
Yeah.
think that's just that has to be part of his nature in a world he lives in. So to see him kind of not rolling with the punches suddenly, and kind of having the woe is me, woe is us type,
Yeah.
damn the luck of and all that. Yeah, that's kind of strange. And then also, it's not like not like King is above killing Jake again.
Again, he's
Right?
already done it
'Cause,
once.
Yeah, he's twice.
Oh, twice. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Jake's been killed twice already. So as a reader, as I'm going into this, I am kind of nervous a little bit, because I'm like, he very well could kill Jake again. Like, he's done it twice already. Like, so I just remember the first time reading this being kind of nervous, where I like, and then seeing the way that Roland's acting here, but then on top of that, in my mind going, oh yeah, well, King's already killed this kid twice, so please God, don't let him do it again. Is he just going to keep doing it? Is it going to be like Kenny, and he just dies all the time and just keeps getting brought back in ways or whatever?
Yeah, exactly. And then Roland says that this is where they split up. Eddie goes to interrupt, and Roland says to listen and don't argue, not if they want to save Jake. And this is what I was talking about before. This is where Eddie doesn't exactly argue with Roland. Like, instantly, if Roland tells Eddie earlier in this book, don't argue, the first thing Eddie does is argue.
Yeah.
Or in book 2, I should say, probably is more accurate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, book 2. Hey, don't argue. Just listen to me. He'd be like, hey, fuck you. How about that?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. He says how the longer they stand there, the colder the trail gets, and that the cold trails are harder to follow. That's such a classic thing for someone who's tracking something. I got to keep the trail warm. I got to keep...
Yeah.
Cold trails are hard to find, and
Yeah.
follow it.
And
That instantly puts dread in me.
That even goes into like modern day, like, right?
Yeah.
Cold case.
Yeah, cold case.
Like,
you got 48 hours after a murder, right? Isn't that what they classically... Or is that a
missing person.
Missing person, that's what it is.
Where it's like, once you get beyond that,
That
it's like
first 48
exponentially
hours.
worse
Yeah.
to not find them.
Odds to find them alive is the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just think like cold case, like that, I wonder if that's even a derivative of like cold trail. You
Could
know what I
be.
mean? Like, I wonder if that's just a derivative
Yeah.
term, which is interesting. And that's still in our modern day
Yeah.
nomenclature. So, indeed.
He tells them to go find Blaine. He says they're looking for a station, or what it used to be called before was a cradle. For once, Eddie doesn't argue. So there's to your point that you were saying earlier, is that this isn't the same old Eddie.
Yeah.
So that's cool. He goes on to say, fire a shot every half hour or so, and when he gets Jake, he will come. Obviously using the shot as, oh, that's where they are, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Susanna says, shots may attract others, and I love this. Roland surveyed them coldly. Handle them.
Yeah.
Not anything. Nothing else. Just handle them.
Yeah, my first
So-
thought here is like, I am, maybe it's just playing too many first-person shooters, especially shittier first-person shooters in my mind, where becomes like a shortage thing. I hate that. That nothing ruins a game for me like that, because I want to be able to just shoot in a game and not have to worry about my ammo count. But we've already dealt with the fact of ammo, and honestly, there's part of me. What did they get? A couple hundred shells is all.
Like 300.
Yeah, so there's not much. So ultimately, in my mind, I remember reading this the first time, being like, "No, don't shoot a shot every. Like, don't do that.
Yeah.
You guys don't have ammo to spare here." But I do remember that being a thing, because again, maybe that's just the first person shooters I've been playing since I was a wee lad. But
Yeah.
nothing is makes me more nervous than, like, I don't want to be in a spot where down the road very soon in this story that we're in a spot where we're out of ammo again. So
Right.
I remember having that thought. And also, my note here is being a gunslinger might finally mean putting others down, not just robot bears and such things. Kind of like, in regards to Eddie and Susanna. I mean, I know Eddie was in the shootout at Balazar's place, but he was not a gunslinger there. He was just basically
Almost cannon fodder.
a bereft brother.
Yeah.
Like, that's what his whole role there. He wasn't a gunslinger.
Did Roland really expect him to like hold his own and even survive? Like, he's like, look, I'm going to have you fight with me, but whatever happens,
but
happens.
There was he showed some mettle, certainly.
Oh, absolutely,
And
he
Roland, Roland definitely admired what he did, but I don't think he was a gunslinger at that point. So this is the first time, really, that as gunslingers,
Yep.
they're faced with potentially having to kill people or living creatures outside of maybe hunting.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting turn.
Yeah, absolutely. Eddie tells him to find him and then sticks his hand out and Roland shakes it briefly. Tells him to pray to your gods and remember the face of your fathers, both of you. Then Roland turns and runs down the ramp. And then you had a note here, right?
Yeah, so everyone had their place in Jake's drawing, but this is the first time that Roland is letting his students out on their own, and I put students in quotation marks there. May not be words of encouragement, but certainly a good sign that he does trust them, because, up to this point, like, has there ever been a time that he's just let them off on their own? And
No.
like this is like life and death, and he's basically saying we got to go separate ways. Like,
Yeah.
do you think that Roland would have done this if he did trust them less? I don't think he would have.
I don't think so either.
I think he would have tried to figure something out. So I do think that this is kind of a good sign for kind of how Roland views Eddie and Susanna, and I don't know, kind of a cool thing.
Exactly. And as soon as Roland is out of sight, Eddie turns to Susanna and finds Susanna crying. Eddie feels like crying himself. A half hour ago, they had been a tight little band of friends, and their comfortable fellowship had been smashed to bits in the space of just a few minutes. Jake's been abducted. Roland's gone after him, and even Oi had left. They hadn't seen Oi because remember, Jake had Oi, and then Gasher told him to pitch him over the side of the bridge, and Jake told him to fuck you.
Yeah, and then when he put him down, he tried to punt him.
Yeah, Gasher tried to punt him, and Oi
and he scurried
took
away.
off.
Yeah.
So even Oi's gone. Eddie had never felt so lonely, even though Susanna's there.
Yeah.
Susanna says that she feels like they won't see them ever again. Eddie snaps and says that they will, of course. Then says how tough Roland is, and they have a train to catch. Susanna asks where, and Eddie says maybe we should just find the nearest wise old elf and ask him, huh? Susanna asks what he's talking about, and he says nothing, and they set off. Interesting that Eddie never once conveyed his secret hopes of the elves and everything like that, even to his wife.
Yeah.
Like, he kept that entirely to himself.
But
he put it out there a couple times, like, maybe we'll find some help. Maybe we'll...
Yeah.
But
his actual deepest
deepest thoughts.
But see, and like, to me, that is actually good old same old Eddie, because I think Eddie has kind of some insecurities, and I think those insecurities are what would stop him from bringing up those hopes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also maybe even part of him.
Well, yeah,
part
because
of him
after years of Henry's, oh, look at the little baby, kind of stuff.
But then also on top of that too is maybe if it's such a deeply held thing that maybe subconsciously he understood that it probably wasn't real. And letting it out and speaking it would then allow Roland or Susanna or Jake or Oi, any of them, to kill it. And, so maybe it's kind of even a guarded thing where he's just like, no, I don't want to let it out, because the second I let it out, it could be killed by someone. So I don't know. It could even be kind of one of those like psychological things. But,
oh, absolutely, yeah. Carol says she has a few things to do, so she'll be in and out of the chat today, but she will be listening, so thank you, Carol. Glad you're here with us.
Yeah.
And that's the end of Subchapter 15, so you're up with Subchapter 16.
And Robert says Next Gen was my fave. Good on you, Robert.
Yeah.
That was my jam. I mean, there's the decades difference too. 60s versus 90s. Yeah, growing up in the 90s, It's what
I mean,
what I
that's-
was going to watch.
It was like new television for us. So,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. Okay, so yeah, jumping over to subchapter 16. The first bit here, I have just a quote straight from the book. Says Jake quickly descended into a foggy world where the only landmarks were pain. His throbbing hand, the place on his upper arm, or Gasher's fingers dug in like steel pegs. His burning lungs. Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
And just King wrote it in a great way there. And then just kind of recapping what we have here, Jake wonders how long Oi could survive in a place like this versus the plains and forests that he came from. Gasher hurries him up and says he's going as fast as he can, and Gasher says he better not or he'll knock him out and drag him by his hair, and Jake forces himself to run faster. Imagine how painful that would be.
Oof.
I mean, you'd be unconscious, but you got to imagine that pain's going to stick
yeah.
around. So, because getting your hair pulled, that's one of the worst pains. Like, let's
Oh yeah,
be
no one
honest.
likes that.
I mean, that's why I have the hair I do, so
Yeah.
nobody could pull my hair.
I mean, you still got a little, you know.
Yeah, that's just like anytime I watch like football and I see someone get grabbed by their hair and pulled down and stuff, I cringe because that hurts.
Yeah, it does.
We've all been there, one level or another, whether it's in
Mm-hmm.
like elementary play on the playground and a kid pulls you by the hair, just something. Whether it's some people have a baby and your baby will grab you by the hair and pull or whatever. Just all that stuff happens. We all know how painful that is.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a terrible thought.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if he would have just said, like, I'll knock you out and then carry over my shoulder, then if I was Jacob, like, all right, go ahead and do it.
Sounds good.
that'd be
All right.
that'd be easier for me. And then going on here, it says he thinks that they have to re-emerge on the avenues, but he realizes that that's not going to happen. So he kind of had a hope that maybe they were just kind of going under some sort of thing and then would come back out. But that's
Nope.
foolish hope there. This was not an alley, but a hidden and fortified road leading to the realm of the Greys. The walls were made of cars, chunks of granite, steel, marble pillars, factory machines, a chrome and crystal fish as big as a private plane. Which is random, with the high speech word delight engraved on it. A spiderweb of chains whose links were as big as Jake's head held a jumble of large items above their heads. So, first of all, you say a chain, it's like, okay, cool. Then you're like, well, with links the size of Jake's head, you're like, oh shit. That's like have you ever seen those not aviating, like naval chains and stuff that they have on these big ass ships and stuff? And like, yeah, the chains
For like the anchor and stuff
Yeah,
like that,
and-
or like
and-
securing stuff down.
yeah, and the links are like the size of like, dinner plates or bigger. It's just insane because most of us have experienced seeing chains, whether it's just chaining up a gate or whatever. But to see one that big is crazy.
I just recently saw a chain break, one of those huge ones you're talking about on a cargo ship.
Yeah.
Dumped a freaking crane into the ocean.
Oh yeah.
So just like those are
Yeah.
the kinds of chains that if they hit you, you just turn to goo.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like if one of those chains snaps and goes flying across the deck, that's just where it's just like
yeah.
you
Yeah.
just turn to goo there in front of it.
Yeah, pretty much. Now, one thing I don't think I put a note on it here, but the high speech. I feel like didn't we just have a conversation on this? Was it the last
Can
episode?
they understand high speech? Yeah, exactly.
Was it the last episode or was it even in the Discord chat? I feel like somebody was asking us about high speech not too long
Yeah.
ago and asking us how we always interpret it. Was it the last
I
episode?
think it was Discord.
Was it? Okay.
I think it was Discord and the Patreons where we were talking about it.
Yeah, so we were talking about that. So it's just interesting that now we hit on this, and it's high speech with the word delight, so it seems like it's something that Jake could read. So again, I don't know what the hell high speech is, man. It's kind of a weird,
Yeah.
what is it really?
Exactly.
Because the fact because this is coming from Jake's perspective, so Jake understands that it's a high speech as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Very, very strange. Very strange. But then my notes here, this chunk feels like a fever dream, with the opening portion saying that Jake is in a foggy world of pain makes it that much so it makes total sense. But it just feels like when you're reading this, it's just yeah, it just feels like you're on something. When you read this and you try to visualize it, it's just like, what the fuck am I reading? Like, this is insane. But it makes total sense because, again, Jake's not necessarily in the best state of mind.
No.
And then my next note is I can see where Gasher is coming from. The gunslinger's on your tail, and it would be obvious for Jake to try to slow you down so that you can be caught up with. So I could totally see it from his perspective where he's just
Gotta
like,
go.
yeah, this kid's going to try to slow me down. So no, I'm not going to fucking let you tell me this is as fast as you can go. Like, fuck you, kid.
no slowing me down so that he can catch up to us from behind. Like,
Exactly. That's the oldest trick in the book, isn't it? So, like, not that
Oh, I twisted my ankle.
Yeah.
Oh, give me a moment and I'll be okay. It's like,
Yeah.
no.
yeah,
know how.
the only thing you could do that'd be more obvious is try to get Gasher to give some kind of long, drawn out speech that would slow them down. Like,
Can you tell me your diabolical plan real fast? look at your watch and glance behind you.
Yeah, exactly. So not that I want to put myself in Gasher's mind necessarily, but I do at least understand
Yeah,
where he's coming
absolutely.
from here, because it's like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, because you know full well, like what did he say? He told Roland he had to like wait 15 minutes before they.
Yeah, before they moved.
Yeah, before they move, which you know that isn't going to be the case.
No.
Once you're out of sight, he's going to start coming after you. So.
That's wishful thinking on Gasher's part, but he knows that he's going to be coming.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what do you picture when you see like mountains of trash like this? Do you have an image in your mind, or like a movie or a reference or anything like that?
I don't know if there's a movie. Like I literally just picture just like the streets of New York as we've seen in 100 movies, but just instead of like clear streets with like nothing between the towers of buildings, there's just chaos and garbage potentially stacked up buildings and chained up and just I don't know that there's ever been a movie that really would convey.
I don't think so.
picture.
I don't think so either, and that's where it's like for me, I come to the series Borderlands kind of has it where in one of
And
the
I haven't played that.
Yeah,
so.
you haven't played it. In one of the games, there's a kind of like a junkyard where it's just like cars stacked on top of it. They've been squished.
Yeah.
And they're just like stacked on top of each other, kind of like that.
Yeah. So
like maybe a junkyard.
Think of like think of like take a junkyard, but then rather than being
but then
encapsulated
dump
in a
it
junkyard
into a street.
Yeah, it fills the street, but not.
Yeah.
And to me, I don't see it as like structured as a junkyard either.
Mm-hmm.
Junkyards are chaotic, but they're organized chaos, right?
It's almost like they went in-
there's
yeah.
rows that they're stacked neatly.
Yep.
No, this would be like rather than cars stacked neatly, like some are all twisted, turned in different directions.
Some are
like
standing
it's-
straight up and down,
like-
and then there's stuff piled to keep it up.
Yeah,
Like-
think of your a kid's toy box, like if they had like
Oh boy.
Hot Wheels cars or
Yeah.
something, and they were just dumped in there. That's kind of what I would picture, just in the midst of
And then
like
it would be all
streets of,
smashed because they dropped like big things of concrete on top of it and everything like that.
chunks of concrete. Yeah, it would just like honestly, I just picture like the end of the world. Like this, like
Yeah.
it seems like it would be a normal city, except the actual set dressing of it is just the Armageddon. It's
Yep.
the end of the world. There's freaking giant fish. There's cars. There's chunks of concrete. There's
Yeah.
chains, for like naval vessels
Mm-hmm.
holding everything up.
Mike says, I always picture Lud as a city in Fallout, but with the cradle untouched. And Fallout's a good one to picture because it is post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
And it does have just like trash and piles of stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's not this bad though, but I can see where he's getting that image.
You know what?
so.
I don't have any specific game, but think shitty game from like the early 2000s that it's just a single like path,
linear path.
linear
yeah.
path. And so what they've done is they built a city, but then they've blocked everything off with garbage so that you only go one way.
Yep.
Like that's kind of what I would picture, even though there's not like again, that's not like there's a specific game that's in my head, but I feel like that's what a game in the early 2000s
Kind of
would
like
have
if they
done.
made Medal of Honor 2854 or something like that.
Yeah.
Like that very linear. You can't jump over this little tiny fence. It's tall.
Yeah, it goes up to your ankles, but you can't jump over it.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Next up, they get to a place where this lunatic path branched, and Gasher went down the left path without hesitating.
I like that that's quoted, by the way, lunatic path.
Yeah.
Like that's how Jake's describing it in his head,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah. Then a little ways down, it splits into 3 alleyways that were so narrow that they were almost tunnels, each one going in different directions. Gasher went to the right. This new path seemed to be formed by banks of rotting boxes and huge blocks of old paper that may have been old books or magazines, and was too narrow for them to go 2 abreast. So Gasher shoved Jake in front of him and began beating him on the back to make him go faster. Jake thinks this is how steers must feel when they're being driven down a slaughterhouse chute, and he vows if he survives this, he will never eat steak again. Now, Jake,
steak.
I was gonna say Jake. Let's
Easy.
not. Yeah,
Easy,
let's not overreact here.
Now we know why King treats him so bad. No.
I mean, yeah, but then again, does he think he even has a choice if he survives this? Like, whatever Roland hunts and cooks in his burritos is what
Yeah.
Jake said. But then again, he did say steak, not just meat. He's not saying
That's
he's going to be a
true.
vegetarian. He just says he doesn't want to eat steak anymore.
Exactly.
Poor kid. How much more can King do to him? Now he's going to take steak away from
Man,
him.
I've been craving a good steak for a couple weeks now. I think I might have to hit up a steakhouse here in the next
I have
couple days.
one in the fridge. As a matter
Do you
of fact.
really?
Yes.
Oh, you suck.
Yeah, I got me a Wagyu ribeye waiting for
Oh,
me. So,
shit,
yeah,
dude.
I'm.
Are you doing it tomorrow with football and
I don't-
everything?
I don't know. It's either tomorrow or tonight. I don't know.
You haven't decided?
No, I haven't decided.
Ooh, I think we should let the chat decide. Everyone in the chat, put in a vote. Do you want Tad to have his steak tonight or tomorrow? Go ahead.
Okay, so my notes here, this is where I started to get nervous. If there is a single path and Roland can follow, but once you start getting twists and turns and various choices of ways to go, there is no real way to follow, that I could find that he could follow him in my mind.
Yeah.
Like, this is where Roland's going to get lost. Like, yes, you can track up to a point, But again, it'd be so much easier if it was just you're going through this path of garbage that's like
Yeah,
Call of
but
Duty.
all of a
is
sudden,
linear.
we have 3 different paths to choose from, and then 2, and then 3,
Yeah,
and then
it's-
4. It's like so
it's-
many different ones. A left, then a right.
yeah, it's
Then the middle
exponential.
one, then the left one.
Yeah,
it's like no.
That's where I started to get nervous. Of like, God, how is Roland going to do this? Like, this
Dude,
is, This is hard.
And then my next note, I started to get depressed because I'm like, there goes Jake again.
Yeah.
Like how is he going to follow him? He's not going to be able to. So what's Roland going to do?
Yeah.
I just remember getting like so just like dejected and down, just like, oh man, really?
I was similar, and I remember thinking to myself, "On what does Jake still have his gun? Maybe like because I was like trying to think to myself,
Yeah.
how else could this resolve itself? Because I just don't know that Roland's actually going to be able to. Once we got to this section, I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work. So, so next up, did King forget that paper was rare in this world? I'm not sure I've ever caught this before, but for this path to be made of tons of paper, it made me wonder if he forgot that aspect of Midworld.
I mean, I put a note here because I saw your note about this. When did paper become scarce, though?
It was scarce in Roland's time because they talked about the Faraday goose thing, where the guy that had got the answers, it was like
It was
a
on-
plank of
it
wood
was
or
on
something.
bark
or-
instead of
yeah,
wood.
it was
You're right.
yeah, exactly. So it's
But when did it become scarce in Blood, though? I mean, this isn't Gilead.
no,
though.
I know, but
This is a different kingdom, that whole kind of thing. So
what?
that's
So,
what I'm saying.
so
is like,
paper's plentiful here and not anywhere else in Midworld. Like,
go
it
ahead and
just-
tell me that there's not that in our world. That there's countries that are rich with iron and some that aren't. I mean, isn't
Yeah.
that what some wars have been fought over? Is natural resources like oil?
I don't know.
I mean, there are some countries who've
I mean,
invaded other countries simply
I
for.
I guess
resources.
if you want to look at it completely logically, you just say, well, wait, there's so many trees in this world. Why is there a shortage of paper?
That's true.
So there's that too. But it just seems to me like, and again, I'm not one that everyone should know me by this point. I don't go out of my way to nitpick things.
No,
but it
you
does
don't.
make me wonder did King forget? Because now we're talking about literally walls of paper of like books and magazines, and this would have been years past the time that King wrote the section in the last book where Roland is pretty amazed by paper. I think paper shortage is mentioned at least once earlier in this book, but it just makes me wonder. I don't know, because that jumped out at me here. I don't think I've ever noticed it before, but doing these book clubs does make us kind of
Yeah, it says huge blocks of old paper that might have once been books or magazines. Was too narrow for them to run side by side, so that's when Gasher shoved them forward. So that's where I'm just like, you can't even tell what it is now. Like, it's so I picture it like so eroded and everything like that. But if it is underground and protected from the elements, it could potentially last for decades.
Yeah.
So I mean, it could be that Ludd has had paper and stuff like
possibly.
that. I mean, if they have electricity,
Yeah, I don't know. It is strange.
I get
to me
it.
Is all.
I get it.
But yeah. Okay, so next up,
Robert says, you said Wagyu beef, and I think I drooled a little bit and made a Homer noise. I vote tailgate at home before watching your NFL team, which your team is on TV tomorrow, so you could absolutely have a steak during the game.
Yeah, and in the afternoon too. So.
That's true.
So I have to highlight this line here from Gasher. Run, my sweet little boy cunt, run.
God.
So, not a fun line
All right,
overall.
we're already
but,
on like strike 6 for Gasher, right?
Yeah.
Like this is not going well for him.
Yeah, Jake lost all track of the twists and turns they made as they went deeper and deeper into the jumbled labyrinth, and he gave up hope of rescue. Not even Roland to be able to find him now, and if Roland tried, he would get lost and wander until he died. That's a bleak outlook from Jake.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, King has not overtly said what they might do to Jake, but he has given some, dropping subtle hints ever since River Crossing. And this first line that I quoted from Gasher is probably another sickening hint of what's probably in store for Jake. And then my next note, poor Jake giving up hope. Has he not been through enough already?
And I just added a note here saying this kid has been through enough. That's not a question. He absolutely has been through enough.
Yeah, like, oh, come on.
If you listed all the things, I don't think you could find a character who's been more beat up and pissed on by an author than Jake Chambers. And I'm including Game of Thrones characters.
And we're only, midway through book 3?
Yeah.
Oh, King, leave this poor boy alone. Next up, also the fact that he thinks that if Roland came for him. So despite Roland's promise, he is not certain if Roland will come for him. He is viewing it as an if and not a when. This makes me feel bad for Jake.
Oh, yeah. Losing hope like that, when you read those stories like Prisoners of War or the Holocaust or some terrible situations and stuff like that, Kidnap Victims is another one that fits very closely to this. It's when that moment of I'm not getting rescued. I'm not getting found. They don't know where I am, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or people lost in the woods.
Yeah.
I've read survivor accounts and stuff like that, and it's just like, that's when I just was deciding that I'm gonna curl up under a tree and I'm just gonna die.
Yeah.
I just give up. Like
Yeah.
that will and everything like that. I feel like we're bordering that for Jake here.
I call that the missed moment.
It's it's the missed moment where you run out of gas and it's like, all right, that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
We've crossed that line and there's no reason to try anymore.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like Jake's flirting with that line so closely.
But I think, again, that's another one of those small things I don't think I ever really noticed in my reads, but doing this book club helped reveal to me, is that fact that Jake does use an if there.
Yeah.
If Roland were to come for me. Mm-hmm. So, again, like, that's just one of those, it's a small, subtle thing, but it's heartbreaking.
It
Because
is.
it's like, because Jake does know Roland picked something else over him before.
Yep.
Roland promised he wouldn't do it again. Roland even promised before going with Gasher that he'll come for him. But Jake doesn't fully buy that, and that's kind of.
Would you?
I mean,
let's be perfectly honest. If a stranger, let's be honest, it's a stranger, it's a father figure and everything like that for you,
yeah, I guess
dropped you and killed you.
There's part of me that hopes that Jake at least trusts Roland.
Yeah.
With both promises of, like, once he came through, I'll never let you drop again, but then also right at the moment on the bridge, he told him the same thing, I'll come for you. For him to not necessarily buy that sucks. Like that I don't know. Not that I blame
that stings a little bit.
I don't blame Jake necessarily, but it does. Yeah, that hurts to read.
Yeah.
Because again,
I get that.
And again, that's just such a small difference, right? It's only a couple letters of a difference that King could have easily written that as when. Roland, but the fact that he goes if is just like, ouch.
Oh, it's just like, oh.
Yeah.
And you kind of want Jake to be like, no, come on, kid, don't lose faith. But at the same time, you're like,
yeah,
I get it.
I get where he's coming from.
I get it.
Yeah. Now they're going downhill, and there are things you may expect in an office building or a nightmarish radio shack, is the quote from the book. And for a small period, a whole wall on his one side appeared to be TV screens. Jake then realizes that they are in a tunnel, and the sky is getting more and more scarce as they go. Jake wonders what would happen if everything above them came down on them. But in his state, it did not frighten him much. If it fell, at least he could get some rest, is the line that gets played there.
Mm-hmm.
Gasher hit him on the left or the right to have him turn when an upcoming turn was coming, to tell him which way to go, and hit him on the head if he wanted him to go straight. Jake hits a pipe and nearly sends him sprawling down, but Gasher caught him and says if not for the TikTok man, he'd rape him and cut his throat while he did it.
Oh, God.
Is essentially what Gasher tells him here. So,
jeez, strike 15.
yeah. Just, I mean, he does say bugger him, so maybe there's a small element that maybe Jake doesn't know what that means.
Yep.
Let's hope.
We do.
Yeah, indeed.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, it says, my note here. Funny that a younger person reading this may not know what a Radio Shack was. It was completely ubiquitous when it was written, but now they are nothing but a fading memory.
Yeah.
Like literally, like, let's just say if it's a 15-year-old kid in high school reading this right now.
Yeah.
Do you think that kid knows what a Radio Shack is?
No.
Like, if he Googles it, fine. But if he doesn't, like...
Well, that's right. I added a note to this. Anyone in the future, my daughter, for example, won't know what it is.
No, like,
My daughter's never been to a Radio Shack, never even seen one.
yeah, exactly.
She's 9.
Yeah.
So that just tells you what...
But the funny thing is that from King's perspective, in his defense, when he wrote this, do you think he had any comprehension that Radio Shack wouldn't exist long into the future?
If you wrote a novel when you were 15, started a novel when you were 15, because let's be honest, King was writing some of the stuff when he was in, high school, college stuff, stuff like that.
This was later on, but yeah.
Well, a little bit later on, but I'm talking about like the Gunslingers, what I was meaning.
Yeah.
Some of that may have been started with ideas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You would have incorporated Blockbuster.
Yeah.
If you had to do a video rental store, it would have been Blockbuster. You wouldn't have predicted Netflix, and we talked a lot about Blockbuster the other day at work and everything like that. So that's why it's fresh on my mind.
Yeah.
But there's other things like that malls.
Yeah.
Dude, malls. Like
Yeah.
they're going the way of the dinosaurs. They're dying off.
But King is like, that's one of the things actually that King's very unique, especially when he first came on the scene, was he was unique because he actually called out name brands and stuff.
Oh yeah.
He didn't just say, most authors would just, they went to a restaurant. No, King's like, they went to a McDonald's. And like that was very unique when King did. I think we all take it for granted now because a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
But King, that was kind of unique for him. And for the most part, he doesn't do things. I mean, we read books that were published, 50 years ago from King. And there's not a lot of times that he calls something out that we don't know what it is. Like, he says McDonald's, or he says, whatever. Like, he calls things out that whatever. This is just one of those few that he hit on here that just unfortunately completely disappeared.
I don't like that you said 50 years ago and it's not wrong.
No,
That-
I mean, yeah.
That's too long, sir. That's not right. Like,
Yeah.
I had another note here. The TV sets Jake describes as the TV sets looking like glazed eyes of dead men. It's just really creepy.
Yeah.
I've been in like a store like Walmart. We both worked at Walmart when the power's out, and walking past those TVs, it was a little bit unsettling.
Yeah.
It is. I don't know why, but it is unsettling that at any time the power could come back and just noise comes blaring out and everything like that.
Yeah.
Plus, let's be perfectly honest, these are old TVs. These are tube TVs.
Yeah.
Dude, you break one of those, it is a really satisfying sound, but it is still kind of creepy, I don't know why, but I like the glazed eyes of dead men. Is how King described it.
Yeah. And my last note on this section is, with that last bit, King is now overtly saying what is in store for Jake with these people. The audience is was probably clear with the hints up to this point, but for Jake, maybe not. But he would have an idea pretty clear in his head now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, unless he doesn't know what that word means, but I just don't think that's the case. I think he probably knows at this
He
point.
understands what cut your throat means, though.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, it's like one of those. It's one of those
context
ones.
clues.
Yeah, you're grabbed by someone who doesn't speak English, and they're holding you, and they're saying something in their language, and then they do the thumb across the throat means death.
Yeah.
You know what that means. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, indeed. And then Chris from Chicago joined us. Welcome, Chris. Glad to have you here with us. Let's the next bit of this portion here. Gasher grabs Jake by the neck and stops him and tells him this part is tricky, and points out some tripwires that Jake cannot see at first. Gasher tells him that if he hits either of those two wires, half the steel and cement in the city will come down on their heads. That's comforting.
Oh, yeah.
Jake, when going under the wires, discovers that he wants to live a bit longer after all, and he can almost feel all those tons of junk wanting to come down on him. After this, Jake is going to put his bag back on, but Gasher asks him if he has any treats in there. Jake tries to answer, but is slapped by Gasher. What is that, strike 37 now?
Yeah, we're up to 38.
Gasher then says that if Roland is following, he will be in for a surprise, as there is a city bus that will fall on him on one of these trip
Good
lines.
Lord.
Yeah, that's a lot. We've been talking about some things here, a fish the size of a private airplane and stuff.
Yeah.
That's something else too. But a city bus, that's not fun.
Massive.
That's
I mean, if
huge.
we're talking about one of our city buses, we don't know how big their city buses is.
Oh, I assume it's at least New York City bus
or
size.
bigger. We don't
What
know.
if it's double deckers?
Yeah, what if it's a double decker?
We need double deckers in America.
Dude, it would be so cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about with the weather we have nowadays, but I do like I like the spirit of double deckers. Jake began to weep, which again, damn you, King. They ran, taking turns seemingly at random, and getting deeper and deeper into the smelly maze. And the drums began at one point, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. That was it for Jake. He gave up all hope.
Dude.
So. Yeah, not a great spot for Jake. And my notes here once again. Even if Roland could somehow follow their trail, this trip line bit is scary. Now Roland has some sharp eyes, but is it enough? Like, you know what I mean? We've seen throughout this story so far, Roland has some pretty sharp eyes, but I don't know. Trip lines of, like, in my mind, a trip line is like almost like fishing wire. Like,
It's almost impossible to
it's
see.
almost like. Unless you're in like a clear open street, like maybe you could see something. But if you're in like the kind of mess that we've talked about what this looks like,
It blends in.
you're never going to see it.
Oh, yeah.
So my next note, Gasher has been terrible this whole time, but this smacking of Jake made me see red the first time reading it. I know he's been hitting him, but hitting him and stuff the whole time, but for some reason this was just so much worse, and I wanted the most horrific and painful death for Gasher at this point.
Yep, and I just
Like-
added a note here along with that because I concur. Smacking a child so hard that they bleed. And I'm going to read the quote directly from it right there, is that it says, Gasher's hand flashed out and rocked Jake's head back with a hard slap that sent a fresh spray of bloody froth flying from the boy's nose. Fresh. A
Yeah.
fresh spray. Meaning it's happened before.
Yeah.
Meaning Gasher has made Jake bleed more than once now
Yeah.
by smacking him.
Yeah.
Do you know how hard you have to hit someone to make them bleed?
Yeah.
Like, he's bleeding from the mouth. Like, this isn't like a bloody nose where you bopped him in the nose like a boxer and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He's opened something up in Jake's mouth and is causing him to bleed in his mouth.
Yeah.
Dude, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
There's a reason that this guy ended up on our most hated. I think I have a note for that later on in one of the other sub chapters, but I'm going to say it here too.
Yeah.
Fuck this guy.
Yeah, yeah. Gasher is not great.
Yeah.
And then my last note seems like a theme, but poor Jake.
Yeah.
It's we've seems like we keep saying that, but yeah, it's just there's no other way around it. This kid's been through a lot, pretty much since first moment we met him.
The first moment we met him was him by himself in a desert
After being run over by
way
a car.
station after being run over by a car and has no idea what the hell is going on or how he's going to survive.
Yeah.
Like, this poor kid.
Yeah, indeed.
That puts us into subchapter 17, and it starts off with Roland stopping in front of a barricade, which is from side to side and top to bottom, blocking the entire street. Roland recognizes he wouldn't be emerging from the other side into the open, and that it is just like the outer wall of the Grey's castle. So, you just covered it. Jake thought that they might be emerging out on the other side of the avenue. Roland instantly recognizes that, nope, this is heading underground, and it is a start of a fortification.
Yeah.
Roland is going to go slowly while tracking footprints in the dust. He sees two sets, one big and one small, just like we should. And he starts to get up and then looks again and gets back down and sees a third set. These are paw prints of a small animal. He calls to Oi, and a single bark comes from the shadows, and then Oi comes back out, which is down the alleyway where Jake and Gasher went. So Oi had already started after them.
Yeah.
He comes back from the hole, stands a bit of a distance from Roland, and I have a quote here. Yeah, he doesn't get too close.
It's because he doesn't want to get grabbed, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. He could feel the dry red curtain that was the battle fever at the edge of his consciousness. This is talking about Roland, by the way. But this was not the time for it. The time would come, but for now he must not allow himself to the inexpressible relief. The idea that Roland has to control this, I call it bloodlust, for lack of a better word, scares me. The man is capable of so much killing, and he has to keep it bottled up. Like, I think about Lud.
Yeah.
Like, that's a sweet relief from him. Like he says that. Like,
Yeah.
the
You mean Toll,
inexpressible.
right?
Yeah, that's what I said.
You said Lud.
I said Lud. Yeah, Toll. The inexpressible relief. So it feels good to do it.
Yeah.
And slaughtering, that is not dude, that's scary.
Yeah. And so the only note I have in response to that is I don't necessarily think that in my mind that this is like bloodlust, like you pointed out, at least not yet. But I think when he says battle fever, it's more like the mindset of a soldier when they enter a battle. Like, so I think that red is like
Flip that switch on.
coming on into like what will be like battle Roland, and that's where he says that time is coming because he knows that wherever he gets to, there's going to be a fight there.
Okay.
And so I guess I see it as that, not necessarily bloodlust, because I don't think that Roland's necessarily like because like when I said it earlier, I think I said I was getting bloodlust for freaking Gasher. I want the fucker dead, and I don't necessarily think Roland's that because I think Roland's just too Terminator-y for that. But I think that's like the like that
okay.
like the I don't know what you'd want to call it, but like the like battlefield. Yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah, like
I'm gonna kill some people. It's coming.
But again, but still, to your point though, it is still something that he can control. That
Yeah.
you know what I mean. That he can kind of dial that back because it's like the time's not yet. You know, like that's coming, but let's dial that down a little
The
bit.
fact that it gives him relief, though, when it is released,
Yeah.
that is scary.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's-
Okay. That's the part
Ooh.
That's the part you're talking scary. And that's definitely true. It definitely tells us maybe more about Roland than we've seen up to this point.
That's what I'm saying is that if you look at Toll, and you look at the fact that he murdered men, women, and children there,
Yeah.
what like 200 or something in total,
quite a bit. Yeah.
176 or something like that. That'd be a good trivia question. How many people were slaughtered in total? Because he counts them.
Yeah.
He goes through and counts them as he's walking back up through. That's a relief to him to be like,
Yeah.
oh, I got that out of my system. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. That's troubling.
yeah.
And Carol says when it comes to Gasher's demise, hashtag let Tad be terrible.
Oh, dude, if I could, I would put you in a room with Gasher with like any instruments you want and let you go to town. He is absolutely one of those characters that deserves every little bit that he gets.
Yeah, he grates on me, man.
Yep.
He this whole section here.
Speaking
he
of
grates
grading,
on
do
me.
you want one of those when you go in the room? Just, you know.
I mean, it seems like he has some pustules and
Ugh.
some discharges coming off his skin. So
Gross.
I don't know if I want to be that close.
That's true. So continuing off after that, Roland asks if he wants to help him find Jake. Ache is what Oi responds, and Roland tells him to go find him. Oi turns her once, and down the alley they go, and Roland follows. Just like that. Boom. Go.
Yeah.
Point the missile and go.
Yeah, and so my note is this is the point when it really set in how important Oi could be for me. I thought that he might be a passing character, and that's
Toss him
why
off a bridge.
That's why I didn't expect him to live past the bridge episode.
You didn't want him to live past. You typoed there.
No.
Yeah.
But after that, you see. But after that, even after that, you see that Jake cares for him above all things, including his own life and the life of his quartet. But even there, I think that I grasp Oi maybe more as like a mascot or a morale boost for Jake, more so than a functioning member of the quartet. Which this is the point when that flips. Like I see, like okay, now, now he's actually functioning. Mm-hmm. As a member of this team, more so than just being like, let's be Jake's more emotional support animal, which the kid needs. Let's be honest, the kid could use it. If nothing else, that makes Oi worth his weight in gold.
Yeah.
But here, no, it just shows that now, there was some switch that flipped for me where I think we've talked about it. You've slandered me quite a bit on the bridge scene, but ultimately because I really didn't know where Oi fit in, but this is really the point that it really solidified for me. This is
really the point where you're like, oh, okay, we don't need to toss him off the bridge. I guess we can keep him.
I mean that's
after he shows you some use, then it's like, oh, it's fine. We don't have to kill this.
Well, no, not even that, because like I said, if nothing else, I thought, okay, cool, he could be Jake's moral support or like the quartet mascot. Like that was kind of my next step after the bridge. But this is the point when then it evolved past that, even where it's like, okay, no, he's actually part of he is actually part of the quartet type thing. So yeah, that kind of a jump point for his character.
This is when you stopped wanting to throw him off the bridge. Got it. I get it. And that's it. That's it for subchapter 17. So you're up with subchapter 18.
Yes, indeed. So on subchapter 18 here.
Oh, hi, Jack. Jack just joined us in the chat.
Oh, Jack, welcome. It says Eddie wonders aloud what kind of people these are. They had followed the avenue from the ramp of the bridge and saw the barricade ahead and barely missed Roland going in. And they turned onto a street that reminded Eddie of Fifth Avenue, but he could not tell Susanna as he was too disappointed to say anything hopeful. And see this, I mean, I'm just going to pause real quick. I know I'm in the middle of my recap here, but with that, his disappointment there, like that is just the ultimate element of Eddie, right?
Yeah.
Just so emotional that he's basically so beaten down by the fact that there is no old wise elves to help him there that he's just like beyond speaking basic things like, hey, this looks like Fifth Avenue. Like,
exactly.
No, he's just like what do you call, like pouting? Like
not necessarily. I don't know necessarily pouting. Like it's not that. It's more like he's just discouraged. Is what I would say.
And I don't. Yeah, I don't mean that in a derisive way. I mean like there's just that there's that emotional state we can all be in and stuff. Like I think he's in that spot right now.
He's been slugged down and is just depressed a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And then next, going on here, says this: the street led them to the building of a white stone that made Eddie think of Rome of the old movies he watched on TV. He figured it was a gallery or a library or some sort of public building. Though there were no longer grass or flowers, only weeds, it still felt stately. And Eddie wondered if this was the center of Ludd's cultural life. Mm-hmm. So definitely an interesting look for a building, because so far with what we've seen, we kind of from afar, we thought New York City.
Yep.
Got closer, some things looked like New York, but it was kind of dilapidated.
Yeah.
Once we get past the bridge, we realize like, oh, the streets are full of garbage. There's the chaos that we just talked about a few minutes ago. But now you're getting to this section. This just feels, I don't know, different. Like not that it doesn't fit in the city, but it feels different from everything we've seen so far. So it's kind of an interesting reveal of what we're seeing.
Yeah, and then the fact that there's little grass patches that have been overrun with reeds remind me so much of downtown of big cities. I've been to some big cities. I've been to LA. I've been to San Francisco. I've been to New York City. And they try to cram these patches of grass and trees everywhere that they can so they can break up their concrete and steel
jungle,
exactly. There's a reason the Central Park was such a big hit in New York City, is because it is just a whole lot of trees and grass and everything like that. But even like LA does it. You'll see in LA, I mean, you've been to LA. You'll see in LA, all of a sudden there's just a flower garden in front of a courthouse or a library or something like that. And it's like, well, that's kind of out of place. And picture that, but now picture it hasn't been maintained for God knows how long. It's just overrun with a bunch of fucking weeds.
Yeah.
That's what we're seeing here.
This is a complete tangent.
Uh-oh.
No, and it won't be a big one. It won't be a big one, but one of my favorite
don't do tangents
one of my favorite bits of trivia about Central Park. because Central Park didn't fully exist. Like when they decided to build it, they had to
Sure.
buy out a bunch of buildings, destroy them, make way for it.
Yeah.
Did you know that Central Park cost more than the purchase of Alaska?
Did it really?
It did.
Holy shit.
Not by much. They're close, but I once I was looking into it and I saw the price that they paid, and I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I was like, in the back of my head, I'm like, wait a minute.
I know that number.
What did Alaska
That's
cost?
pretty close to that number because you
So-
love Alaska.
Yeah, America spent, or New York City spent more on Central Park than the United States spent on Alaska. So that's a fun little bit of trivia for you there.
Were the years pretty close? Like,
I don't know about that. I'm not sure on that. But still, close enough that like, yeah, we're not talking like inflation differences.
yeah,
no,
yeah.
like
See,
they're
that's what I'm wondering. Is like, was it like 100 years later?
No,
Okay,
no,
see, that's
no.
what I was.
Yeah.
That answers my question.
so
Thank you.
just insane to think about though, because Central Park,
Yeah.
it's just a small little. I mean, it's not small. It's got some heft to it.
It is a pretty
But-
big section, but having to buy people out of New York real estate,
But
even back then,
vers-
whenever that was, you
Versus the biggest land portion in all of the United States is Alaska.
know,
so.
common mistake is that people think Texas is the biggest state. We all know better. It's Alaska, folks.
But yeah, sorry, just a small little nerdy tangent because that's just one of those little nuggets of info that I have in my head. So then next they come to an intersection where there are 4 broad streets that come together like a spokes of a wheel. At the center of this was a paved square with a loudspeaker around it on a 40-foot steel post, or a bunch of loudspeakers on 40-foot steel posts. And at the center was a pedestal with the remains of a copper statue of a horse whose rider was lying nearby with a machine gun in one hand and a sword in the other. Gray's Die was written on the pedestal in orange letters. Down each of the streets, we see more loudspeaker poles, most still standing, and bodies were hung from them, making this square seem like as though it was guarded by an army of the dead. So that's fun.
I just looked it up because I was curious. It was 9 years apart.
Yeah, okay, so it wasn't super
No,
far.
not even a decade. So
Yeah.
the cost
is equivalent.
is equivalent. Then.
Yeah.
yeah, 9 years. That's crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty
That is
crazy.
a vivid image, though. Having people, you know what it kind of reminds me of?
What?
Vegas.
Randy Land?
We both just reread The Stand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next, my note here is feels very not of our world to have a rider holding a gun and a sword. It totally makes sense with the Arthurian nature of Roland, but it is just one of those like world building things.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that because like there were some times like World War I is probably the one time that you really saw like a crossover where there were still some people that still had swords as part of their uniform, and they had maybe a sword and a gun. But like, I don't think
that was the end of it. Just where you want to look at it. That's the end of where people had guns and swords. After that, people stopped carrying swords as much.
Yeah,
but before that, for hundreds of years, people had swords and stabbing weapons and slashing weapons because the guns weren't accurate. I mean, dude, Revolutionary
Yeah.
War, you had cavalry that only had swords. They didn't carry guns.
Yeah, but
They drew their sabers and charged in.
we don't really like. We wouldn't necessarily like. You wouldn't see a lot of statues in our world of someone holding both, and I think it's also a machine
No.
gun too. So
Yeah.
you know, it's just a very unique thing, but it just feels right for Roland, especially because Roland, we kind of have this Arthurian connection with him, and he has guns. Like he's like a guns, but he's also an Arthurian knight. So it's just kind of cool to have this statue that's both. I don't know.
Yeah, and Roland's shown us how rare guns are already. I'm shocked they had a gun at all listed, showing there.
Yeah.
It's just weird that even the statues would have it,
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I don't think that I can't think of a single statue that would have a sword and a gun.
Yeah.
Like maybe he has like a sidearm if it's like a general or something like that. Maybe he'll have a sidearm and then he's got his saber up and he's riding his horse.
Yeah.
But for the most part,
But to have like holding a machine gun and a sword, like, that's
Yeah.
my picture. It's just like some crazy action movie
That's
cover.
a very Arnold thing.
Exactly what I was thinking. Like just mix up, Commando and Conan the Barbarian.
Exactly. There's a movie that we could both get behind.
And then the next, my last note here on this section, then we get some graffiti wishing the Greys to die, and then a bunch of bodies hung all over the place. Not a fun thing to find. And we've kind of, I don't know, just the graffiti, just there's something about that feels eerie. And then the bodies all over the place. I don't know. Just this whole thing just feels out of whack. Doesn't feel good.
No, it does not. Whenever there's a bunch of dead bodies hung up, it's never a good sign that the society that you're dealing with is
rational
or sane
just.
or just or the good guys or anything like that. Just like Brandy Flag in Vegas.
Oh, slander.
You just agreed with me, sir.
Slander. Carol says, yeah, they didn't really buy people out. I'll just leave it right there. Yeah, I mean, it was probably eminent domain, but there was a lot of cost involved, and I do believe as part of Central Park is there was a lot of rich and powerful people that they had to buy out. So I do think in some cases they probably did have to actually cut some checks, but
oh boy,
just because you're talking about the power structure of the city a little bit. But ultimately, it ended up costing a shitload of money, and most of it wasn't just like laying, like dirt and planting trees. A lot of it was like, oh yeah, there's some stuff we got to move.
Carol, I'm going to answer your question in chat because I don't want to spoil anything. So
okay, so next up, it says Eddie asked what kind of people these were, and Susanna didn't answer, but she could have. We see that she has one of her insights into the past, like we saw her have at River Crossing, but where her past visions, like River Crossing, felt more like visions, this one was like a single flash that was like seeing, quote, the twisted face of a dangerous maniac illuminated by a stroke of lightning. So that's a fun little thing. She saw how the speakers, the hanging bodies, the drums all went together, as clear as she earlier understood that the carts near River Crossing were pulled by oxen and not mules or horses. But this is not spelled out here, not yet. She tells Eddie to forget this, and they need to find the train. So I find this very strange for King to lay all this up like this, but then not pay it off in this moment of realization for the characters. Though they do tie the drums to the speakers and the hanging bodies, so he gives us some hints here. But this feels very unique. Usually when a character has one of these moments of realization, it's pretty rare for King not to let us in on it right away.
Yeah.
Usually, unless it's like some kind of like, like, oh, he's setting up this whole elaborate plan that like we as readers get deceived to kind of get surprised, whatever. But in general, when the people have these eureka moments, we're kind of let in on it. So the fact that
we're usually inside their head and we're reading it with them.
Yeah, exactly. And like some of it's there, but not all of it. So I remember being frustrated by this because I'm just like, well, tell me.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, come on, tell me.
You can't keep that from me. That's not how this works.
Yeah, it's like, no, stop. Don't go find the train. Let's back up and figure out what she's seeing here.
Let's read let me have a summary here. Thank you very much. I think I have a note later about that I really would love a summary of like the war that encompassed Lud.
Yeah.
I actually do. I'm going to save that. More details for that later.
So then the next bit here says Eddie glances at the sky and picks up the path of the beam, and he is not surprised to see that as he looks down the street, the one that was most aligned with the beam is guarded by a large stone turtle. I'm hoping it's a ninja turtle, but that's
stop it.
That's just me. They went in that direction, and the corpses lining the streets gave off a dry, cinnamony smell that made Eddie's stomach clench because it not that it was bad, but because it was kind of pleasant. Seems like you're having the same reaction there that Eddie's having.
That's gross.
The turtle street was broad and most of the bodies were mummies, but Susanna did see some that were fresh, with flies and maggots still aplenty. Below each of the speakers was a drift of bones, so that gives us a little bit more too. Having a collection of bones below the speakers, that makes it even worse. Hanging bodies is one thing, but then if you have like a whole collection of bones, like name me a time that you're going to stumble into a place with a collection of bones. You're like, oh, this is a good thing. Like usually it's like, oh, this is like the killing zone for the wolf or the lion or the bear.
Oh, I'm in their lair.
You're on the killing floor now. I don't know. That's just not good. Eddie says that there must be thousands. Men, women, and children. Susanna agrees and says that they had a lot of time to kill and they used it to kill each other. Eddie,
that's a great line.
Yeah, it is. Eddie laughs at the idea of wise elves and thought he finally begun to fully understand what the phrase "the world has moved on" really meant, and what a range of ignorance and evil that it covered.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a eureka moment for Eddie. He's probably been hearing that for a while now. He's been with Roland for the longest up to this point, so he's probably heard that more than anyone.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's ever really fully grasped it till this moment.
Exhibit A, Eddie.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit. I mean, when you think about it, Eddie really hasn't seen much of civilization of Roland's world.
Even us, did we up until this moment really fully comprehend what that phrase meant, or do we kind of take it as a cutesy turn of phrase too?
We kind of took it that way. All we've seen so far is Lud. I'm not Lud. Tull. I keep doing that.
Yeah.
All we've seen is Tull and River Crossing so far. When it comes to civilization, the way station was even abandoned. I mean, there's we haven't seen civilization yet. This is our first real taste of civilization.
Yeah.
In this
I
series.
mean, we've had a little peek of Gilead in Roland's mind with flashbacks.
from
but-
long ago.
Yeah, but I think it's just crazy to me because I think along with Eddie, we as readers too, like it's easy to see that phrase and not really understand the full like weight of it. I mean, we did see Hax was planning to poison a whole town or something, wasn't
Yeah.
he, in the first book? So
And we knew there was a revolution going on and Farson and all that kind of stuff
Yeah.
and everything, but we don't know the extent of that. We haven't heard about war crimes or anything like that. Just that he's revolting. Well, great. If you revolt, you get put to death. I mean, that's pretty standard
yeah,
for human history. Is that it? Hey, you're in charge. Well, forget that. I want to be in charge. I'm going to kill everyone who supports you. And your response to that is, well, great. That's fine. Well, then I'm going to kill everyone who is helping you try to overthrow me. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's been done throughout history. You know, like. Hell, I just watched a video on Romans that if someone failed, they'd crucify. Not Romans, Carthaginians. That if they failed commanding someone like an army, they'd crucify them. Their own people.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't do a good enough job? Great, get up on a cross. You know, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. Like that's throughout human history, like that.
yeah.
So to see it here, and one of your notes covers what I wanted to say, so I'll leave it for that. But it's not long ago.
yeah.
It just happened. Like,
Yeah.
You know?
So my note here makes total sense that the streets be made in a way that follows the path of the beam. If the beam itself is pulling things in its way, like trees growing that way, and like that, we just see all this natural stuff. Wouldn't it also follow that humans are almost drawn to build along those beams
Right.
too? So I love that, but it kind of makes total sense because it's like, yeah, like because remember when they were all trying to figure the beam out, and it's like once they locked on it, they realized like the branches are all moving in that direction and stuff, and it just feels perfectly obvious that
Yep.
like they would.
Oh, look, there it is.
They would build those
Yeah.
streets along those same paths. So that's
Hey,
kinda
Bob,
cool.
why are we building the streets like this? Don't question it.
I almost think that nobody would even question it.
No,
it would just be
it
like
just
it'd
happened.
be self-evident. It'd be like, yeah, this is the way we
It's,
go.
it's one of those things that, you know, hundreds of years later, a scientist figures out, like, oh, there's a path of the beam. Oh my God! Look how much lines up with that, and he just like starts tracing it.
Yeah.
and discovers
And he
the
just-
tower.
yeah.
Discovers the tower by accident.
It's like a mid-world YouTube video.
Yeah.
Look at all this with this beam, and look at all, and yeah, exactly. Beams.
Instead of aliens, it's beams.
Yeah, my next note here: the fresh bodies worry me more as I'm reading this
Yeah.
the first time. Ancient mummified bodies can be brushed off as ancient history and a distant danger, but the ones that are fresh, that we're I don't know, that just suddenly brings a fresh and present danger to Eddie and Susanna and Roland and everyone involved here because hangings like cool mummified bodies like. That could have been thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago. Could have been
Yep.
who knows how long ago. But then when you start seeing ones with maggots and flies and shit, it's like, uh-oh. Yeah. That's not fun.
No.
That's making me a little bit nervous as a reader here.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I was saying before. Is like, I was going to put a note in here being like, that's very concerning, and then I saw your note, and I'm like, yep, that's
Yeah.
exactly what I was going to say. It's like, it's one thing. It's one thing where if you walk into the wolf's lair and you see a bunch of bones, it's like, oh, okay, maybe the wolf moved on, maybe it died, something
Yeah.
like that. But then you turn around and you see a dead, deer, and there's the deer carcass. You're like, well, shit, it's still around
Yeah.
somewhere, and that's fresh. So,
Yeah.
all right.
It'll be worse if you're like in a snowy, cold area and it still had steam coming
Yeah,
out
it's
of
the
it.
steam. Literally thought the same thing. It's still warm. Like, oh my god.
Indeed. And then let's see. Did I miss anything in the chat here? Let's see. Oh, some spoiler stuff.
Yeah.
That's totally fine. And then we got Fourth Legacy. Fourth Legacy, if you've joined us before and have told us your name, sorry, I have forgotten. He says, Roland's quest to rescue Jake is one of my favorite parts of the whole series, where Roland shows us the true difference between an evil man and a dangerous man. And then says that evil men only know how to hurt and terrify, while dangerous men know how to control themselves until it's time to hurt and terrify those that need to be.
Which
So
is kind of
it
like what
goes
we were
along
just
with
talking about, the bloodlust versus battle
Yeah.
fever.
Yeah, exactly.
What we were talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, with Roland. So then my next section here, or next part of this subchapter, Susanna thinks that that the speakers were a wartime measure. Who knows what war, but it was a war nonetheless. The leaders of the city used the speakers to make announcements from some central bomb-proof location. She could hear the voices echoing from the past. And I have this taken directly from the book here. What she's hearing: Ration Center A and D will be closed today. Please proceed to centers B, C, E, and F with proper coupons. Militia squads 9, 10, and 12 report to Send side. Aerial bombardment is likely between the hours of 8 and 10 o'clock. All non-combat residents should report to their designated shelters. Bring your gas masks. Repeat, bring your gas masks.
Jeez.
So, yeah, that's a fun, just small. I mean, I don't even know how many words that is. Not many, but it paints a picture, doesn't it?
Oh yeah,
of what
instantly
what
makes
blood looked like before.
Oh, yeah.
Before any of this, right? Because we're seeing it in its aftermath. This is like Rome has fallen, whatever. But this is giving us an insight to what it looked like in those battles that the folks at River Crossing were talking about.
I think that this is. I have my note here. Makes me think of something you'd hear in England or Germany during aerial bombardments of World War II.
Yeah,
Like the air raid sirens are going off in my head when I read this section every time. That, and everything like that, and I can just see people we know about the Battle of London. We know what English had to go through to sustain the city. They sent children away from the cities to go live in the countryside to get away from the danger.
Yeah.
And I could just see that being a thing here, like with Ludd, having them like the shelters and stuff like that. Gas mask makes me nervous.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we both have done some studying on World War I, and I can tell you right now, poisonous gas is,
That's pretty terrifying.
dude. It's some messed up stuff there. You don't want to be messing with any of that.
Yeah. Next up, it says Susanna thinks the announcement and some of the news, and some of it was news that came through the speakers, was either announcements or news that was propagandized. Between those things, military music and urging to respect the fallen by sending more people to battle. But then the war ended and the speakers fell silent for some time. And when they came back, all they played was drums, and the citizens had maybe taken it as the voice of the turtle or the beam. She then remembers a conversation with her father where he said God had washed his hands of humanity, and she showed him something about a preacher saying God speaks to us every day. And her dad said that the preacher hears something and he hears exactly what he wants to hear. So very cynical view of things. And then the last little bit here before I have some notes, what these people had wanted was to hear the drums was an invitation to commit ritual murder. And when it played, they would hang people from the nearest speaker post. So yeah, that's not fun.
No, it's not.
Then my notes here, I said it's a handy ability for Susanna to have because it grants us the readers the ability to see clearly what things used to be like and what they have been since then. Not necessarily speculation from characters, but real visions of what actually was/is. I don't know, just really handy because
It is.
If you didn't have this, there'd be no way for you to know this.
Not unless they came across like here's a pamphlet that says what happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Something that's a little too
on the nose. Yeah. Next up, I said, interesting to imagine what this battle was and what it looked like. Hearing the announcements through Suze is really cool world building. It just makes you wonder, like, what does that look like? What does that day-to-day look like? What's the battle? What's the enemy? What does the daily life look like? And some of it showed us with that announcement there, but
yeah,
I don't know.
And I concur to
that.
that. I said I would even go so far as I just love to read a summary of what led up to this, like I do with battles in World War II. It's like, like the army moved south and encircled this town, and then the other army moved to the other side, and that's what formed Stalingrad.
Yeah.
Like that's how Stalingrad started, is that it was just, no, we're going to take this key point of the river, and it's it's something like that. This is where, if I'm Joe Hill, I go to Daddy King, and say, hey, listen, I got this idea. I'm going to write this book where all it is different key points in the history of Dark Tower, the fall of Gilead. I'm going to write that from an outsider's perspective, just like it's a history book.
Yeah.
Like read it like that. Dude, I would gobble that up so fast.
Who of us wouldn't?
I know, right?
My last note here is then we finally get some clarity on the bodies and how that's connected to the drums, and that these people basically kill each other every time the drums play. Suddenly gives a whole lot of retroactive weight to all those times we've heard the drums up to this point.
They're just
in
standing
book.
on the side of the road, talking, chatting,
Hearing the drums,
having a smoke,
quietly
you know?
talking about it, whatever. But really, and then I said dozens, if not hundreds of people were dying every single time those went off.
Eddie realizing what song it is and what band and everything like that, just chit-chatting and everything like that.
Yeah,
and
just it adds
people are dying.
Yeah, people are being killed.
Not one or two.
No, probably dozens, if not hundreds. But
Exactly.
we don't know. We certainly be dozens by what we're seeing, but this is a big city, so it could very well be hundreds.
Could.
So yeah, that's add some retroactive weight. That's all. That's an interesting thing to have. Where if you do think back on that, or if you reread it and you get to those moments and you're just like, God, I know what's happening right now. This is not good. And then Sue's wondering how many have died because of some circuit in the city may have glitched, causing a loop of drums playing. She wonders if the otherworldliness of it caused them to react the way that they did. Because again, it's not of this world; it's of our world.
Yeah.
She knows she is as cynical as her father about God. These people wanted to kill each other, and the drums were only an excuse to do so. She then thinks of the mutant beehive and how the city is not much different. Remember that from a few sections back, where they saw the beehive; they were going to eat the honey, but then they saw that the bees were all insane and mutated, and not good. She also wondered how many more will die before the tape breaks. And in my mind now, in the 21st century, I hope it's a tape and not a digital copy, because then there is going to be no breakage. Then the drums begin again. They both yell in surprise. She then hears the rest of the music, and I think this is more from her vision type stuff. She's able to hear the rest of the track, or tracks that have been muted decades ago. They continue on looking for tracks to lead to the train station. They're looking for elevated tracks, just something to give them some kind of clue as to what direction to go to find this cradle. And then my note here, Suze with her ability proves, at least to us, that Eddie was right, that it is Velcro Fly by ZZ Top. But the funny thing is, though, is that she can't hear, or though she can hear it with her abilities, she is from a time period that she would not know or recognize the song.
Nope.
That sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if she really wanted to, whatever she's hearing, she could sing, and then Eddie could confirm that it's Velcro Fly. But
yeah,
I don't think there's any doubt from our minds as readers.
I think we've confirmed it. Eddie confirmed it. He's like, that is absolutely Velcro Fly.
Yeah,
and I trust Eddie.
Yeah,
you might not, but I do.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to things like that, sure.
Yeah,
Velcro Fly, ZZ Top. And let's be honest, I don't know if I've ever heard that song before reading this series, but I do listen to it on occasion now.
I've never listened to it.
Really?
I've never pulled it up and listened to it.
I just thought to myself, I should have get it on my thing here to play.
Start playing a little bit.
Yeah, it's a catchy song for sure.
Copyright strike.
Yeah, no kidding. If it's YouTube, copyright
strike.
Yeah.
Even thinking about it is a copyright strike.
Yeah, we hum it and then get a copyright strike. Pretty much.
And then we move into subchapter 19. Fitting.
It's good number.
19. Yeah. Jake's daze is broken by Gasher grabbing the collar of his shirt and yanking him backwards and tripping him at the same time. Jake blacks out when his head hits the concrete. Gasher wakes him up by pulling him up by his lower lip. This really bugged me, because why get mad at him and hurt him getting knocked out when you're the one that fucking did it?
Yeah.
Like, stop the kid. Fine, I understand that and everything like that, but don't pull him back. Don't knock him out and everything like that. You're just going to make your life hard. It's just so irrational in my mind.
Yeah.
It bothers me. But
how many strikes are we on now?
That's 87.
Okay.
So
for those keeping score at home,
I've been keeping track. Yeah.
For me, my note here is I'm not okay with any bit of this festering twat being anywhere close to Jake's mouth. Just a nasty bastard. And I feel repulsed for Jake here.
Yeah,
because if you're grabbing the lower lip, that means that some part of his disgusting diseased finger got into his mouth.
I've never thought about.
Oh, really?
The only thing that would be worse is if he fish hooked him and pulled him up.
But if he grabbed like there, some part of his finger. When do you think the last time Gasher washed his hands? That's all I'm saying.
Do you think he ever has?
Exactly.
Ugh.
Not to mention he's got all sorts of horrible diseases.
Yeah, poor Jake.
I'm glad I made it worse for you.
Yeah, you did. You absolutely made it worse, especially with what I'm about to read. Gasher needed a break and was doubled over breathing hard. He looked even worse.
So he'd be sweaty, too.
Stop it. Stop. You're disgusting.
If I have to have these horrible images in my head, I'm going to make sure you share them.
No, you don't have to, Tad. There's no rule saying that I have to share in your misery.
That's my rule.
See, and that's why hashtag Tad is terrible. Under his eye patch were curds of evil-looking yellow muck. Evil-looking yellow muck is a phrase I never, ever want to read again or think about.
No comment.
Yeah, you better not. Gasher tells him to look up, and Jake isn't surprised to see an entire fountain as big as a house trailer, and it's only held up by 2 frayed and rusty cables. I had to look up what a house trailer was when I first read this because I've never heard that phrase before. I found out that's called it's what we call a mobile home here in Utah.
Or like a trailer for
Like
a trailer park.
Like a trailer park. Yeah.
Yeah.
We call them mobile homes here in Utah. That is freaking huge.
Yeah.
And it's suspended above them.
Yeah.
Not braced on something. It's held up by 2 frayed cables and
Yeah.
everything. Like that is unsettling.
It's not great.
No.
Mike has one for you in the chat there.
Mike Gasher doesn't even know what toilet paper is. Ah, man.
I didn't say anything.
Mike, come on.
Well done, Mike. And then my note here, this just gives me anxiety. All this stuff is so precariously hung above. I would not be able to comfortably go under something like this. Like,
No.
if I lived in the city, I don't know how I could do it. I don't know
No.
if I could do it. Like,
No.
yes, if I'm Jake and I'm a prisoner, I'm forced to. Like, that's one thing. Or if I'm rolling chasing
Yeah.
Jake, that's another. But like, yeah, it would take a lot to get me to go through this and be okay with it.
Not a fan. No, absolutely. Gasher says TikTok man is Trig Cove. So, TikTok man. And he's Trig, which means he's smart and everything like that, and he's tricky. And then says, where are the drums? And someone named Copperhead better not have forgotten them. And I'm not going to go into details about what he said he would do to Copperhead if he didn't, but it involves buggering. Gasher tells Jake to look ahead. Jake does, and Gasher instantly clouded him immediately and says, not across, but down. Tell him that. Then they don't. Strike 94. Look for 2 dark cobblestones. After a moment, Jake sees them. Gasher tells him that these are the trips that would bring the whole fountain down. Jake steps over the first discolored stone and saw it was actually a metal plate rounded out to look like a cobblestone. Jake thinks about stepping on the second one and just ending the whole thing. Gasher hits him in the back, but not hard. Doesn't want to send him off balance or anything like that. Says if you're going to take a ride on the Handsome, to do it already, because Gasher's already a dead man. He's
Yeah.
like, I'm going to die anyways. Go ahead, dude. You want to squish us? Squish us.
Yeah.
Basically what he's saying here. Jake thinks about it seriously for a second, but doesn't. Steps over the plate. And he has decided that, quote, if I'm going to ride what he calls the Handsome, I just as soon go with plenty of company, end quote. Roland would have understood.
Yeah.
I love that. That's why I highlighted that. I love that.
Yeah.
This kid's got balls.
Yeah, yeah, and he's there's some bloodlust in him.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
he deserves it. He definitely deserves.
I'm sorry, battle fever.
No, for him it's bloodlust.
This is bloodlust. Yeah,
because like battle fever, that's just like cool, going towards battle. But bloodlust is like an anger.
dude.
You know?
I'm gonna take as many of these sons of bitches with me
Yeah.
as I can.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Jake's exact thought right now.
Yeah. So my note here is the drums are not automated, but at the control of one of Gasher's group of goons.
Yep.
So that makes it so much worse to know that how many people die every time that someone's pushing a button to play it.
Yep.
Or is it automated and they can push it and play it outside of the automated? Either way, there's an ability for someone.
There's a degree of control that Gasher's group, the Greys, is doing to the pubes where they slaughter each other.
Yeah.
So they're pushing a button and the Greys die. I mean,
Yeah.
the pubes die.
Yeah.
Over and over again. They keep doing it. And dozens, maybe hundreds, we don't know,
Yeah.
are electrified.
Yeah.
That's bad.
That's pretty bad.
And that's the end of
pretty bad.
subchapter 19. Really short chapter.
Yeah, indeed.
Subchapter.
And this one isn't super long either. And I guess I will even just pause right here and say this is the last subchapter. Normally, I would have liked to go a little bit further, but the problem is that 21 is fucking massive.
It is a big subchapter.
And like, there's just, I just don't know. I don't know if we could have given it enough credit necessarily in this episode. In fact, next episode, what have we got in this one? 15 through 20. We've got whatever.
Yeah.
Next one, we were literally only going to end up covering 3 subchapters because 21 is so freaking long.
it's
So
huge.
like it's like it's it's huge. So ultimately, this one's going to be a little bit maybe shorter than we normally would, but it's simply because of where 21 is. It's probably the longest subchapter that we've seen up to this point in this book series entirely. So going to subchapter 20, though, it says Jake was wrong that the gunslinger could not follow him through the maze. He found his bag amongst other signs, but really he just had to follow Oi. He still stopped at intersections looking for signs, and Oi barked at him, almost telling him to hurry. Each time that he saw some sign from either Jake or Gasher, it proved that Oi was right. After 3 of those confirmations, he stopped pausing and had just trusted Oi. So what I love here is that Roland doesn't just trust Oi. I feel like that would have been it would have been beyond the gunslinger to put the fate of Jake in an animal. Only after proving himself a few times does Roland choose to trust him, because honestly, Oi is new, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no reason for Roland to trust him at this point. Not that much. Not enough to put Jake's life on the line. So when they come to these intersections and Oi makes a decision, Roland's looking around looking for, is there a smudge? Is there like a thread from like Jake or Gasher's shirt or scarf? Is there some signs like, okay, Oi's onto something? But so I just love it. It's almost scientific that Roland's just like testing Oi like 3 times before, and after the 3rd time, he's like, okay, cool. Now I'll just follow the little guy. I love that, and I put here in my notes as well. Roland has the mindset of trust but verify. So I do love that, and I appreciate it from Roland's side. Sorry, my internet just like went all. Oh, at least the Google thing did. So my
gotcha.
Get back
Well,
to my
while you're doing
spot.
that, I'm going to read this from the chat. Carol says, Grogu, Baby Yoda, was struck exactly 3 times and the world lost its mind. We need a Dark Tower series so people can go ham on Gasher. Mike says the actor would have to go into witness protection.
Oh yeah, I mean, there is party that hates Ted Lasso because of that,
Yeah,
because he was the one that did
he
it.
was the one that did it. Yeah, have Tad ruin that series for you too, because like he did for me. The actor who plays Ted Lasso is the one that punches Grogu.
Yeah. Now I will say too, there was this horrible incident where the guy that plays Ted Lasso, I'm forgetting his name, I'm sorry, Jason Sudeikis, I think.
There you go.
So Jason Sudeikis is the stormtrooper that punched Grogu, Baby Yoda. There was also a point he was an award show, and I think he was getting divorced, and his wife had his papers served while he was on stage.
Oh my god.
Which is a fun thing for you. I know how much you love awkwardness.
No.
So his divorce papers were served to him while he was on stage at this award show. And my first thought was, it's because he punched Baby Yoda. He deserves this.
That's why she divorced him?
No, that's why
okay.
that's why he had this humiliating on stage thing, is because if he hadn't punched Baby Yoda, it would have all been taken care of
It would have been
off the screen and stuff. But yes, we definitely need a Dark Tower series so that people can hate Gasher as much as we all do as readers.
Yeah.
Because he's the
Vile.
worst. Like it'll like in the way Mike mentioned, the actor have to go into witness protection. It's like Dirty Harry, the first one, the Zodiac. No, because the Zodiac Killer is the real one. Scorpio Killer, whatever.
Yeah.
It's a riff on the Zodiac Killer as the villain of the first Dirty Harry, and that actor actually had death threats, and he'd go to the grocery store and get spit on and attacked by people because if you've watched Dirty Harry, he victimizes a bunch of people, but including puts a bunch of children at risk towards the end of the movie.
Yep.
So he went through a lot of stuff because of that, which I always feel bad for with actors. They do such a good job, and then they get shit like that because they almost did too good of a job. Luckily, you've never been in that realm. Like Mrs. Carmody, for instance. If you met her, I know you would maybe cringe on the inside a little bit, but I know you would commend her as a wonderful actor.
Oh yeah, because they're the best when they make me hate them so much like that.
Yeah.
Like the Joffrey kid from Game of Thrones, the guy who played Joffrey, he quit acting.
Yeah.
Like he completely.
For that, I actually fully agree with him though, because I think what one of his rationales behind that is that there would never be a way for him to overcome that. Like that people would never not look at him and not think Joffrey. The only thing about that though is I think the Harry Potter kid's gotten out from under that, and that's even more of an iconic role. So maybe he quit. I don't know.
It's
with
it's entirely possible to go out on top. There's people who do that. I mean,
Yeah,
we've seen it
that's
across
true.
sports and entertainment
It's
as
true.
well. So they're like, you know what? That's it. I'm done.
Yeah. So the next section here, the drums and Gasher's curiosity about what was in Jake's bag saved Roland's life. Roland drew his gun before even realizing what it was when the drums started. He then had to put his gun back in his holster. So I love that it's almost like automatic. He doesn't even like physically think about drawing when the drums start.
Yep.
He just realized like, oh shit, I got my gun out. You know, like,
wrong hand.
well, I've got all my fingers. He sees the bag and happens to catch a gleam of the wires. Oi was so small that he went right under the X of the wires because it's forming an X in the path.
Yep.
If not for the drums and the bag, Roland would have ran right into the wires, setting the trap off, dropping all kinds of stuff on top of him. Oi barks impatiently, and Roland gets down and army crawls under the wires. He also mentions, I don't know if I even put this in my notes, but he mentions that he had a hard time with it and that he's bigger than Jake or Gasher, and that if it were a bigger person, they would have no hope at all of getting through this. Roland looked into Jake's bag and sees everything that was in there, including the books and some other random things that he would want back if Roland could get there before Gasher and his friends changed him, is the phrasing that King uses, hurting him in a way that would cause him to lose interest in innocent things that his bag contains. Gasher's face came into Roland's mind, and he thinks terrible things if Gasher hurts the boy, and then quickly corrected himself and said Jake, not the boy, which is an interesting internal monologue thing.
Is that a switch for him?
Yeah, because remember in the first book
Yeah.
it was the boy, and it was like, and King wrote it in a way where it was like specifically Roland was calling him the boy to keep him at arm's length.
Yeah.
Like that was spelled out. Roland lengthened the strap of Jake's bag, and is amazed by the clever buckles that made this possible, which is one of those fun little fish out of water things. 'Cause those are so ubiquitous that we don't even pay them any mind.
We've had that our entire life.
Yeah, it's like we've never not known those.
Yeah.
Well, at least us. I mean, older people maybe. I know, like those aren't necessarily.
Jake's bag is from the 70s.
Yeah.
So I mean, like,
Yeah.
we'd have to go back a ways before we find a bag that doesn't have those.
Yeah.
We were just talking about it. The 70s were 50 years ago, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
So
Oi started again, but Roland stopped him and called him back. Oi barked impatiently, but Roland says it was dangerous and tells Oi to stay close. So I love Oi's impatience. I guess, animals don't have the same reasoning that we do. So for Roland to tell him, it's going to get dangerous now, you got to stay close, all that kind of stuff. But I just love Oi's, and even when Roland's questioning him earlier and trying to test to see is Oi going the right way, Oi's just like impatiently barking the whole time.
Let's go.
Oi.
That's right.
Yeah, I just love it. I don't know. It just feels very true to me. It seems like it's the way an animal would act. So my note here, I love this place. I love that this is a place dangerous enough to have bested Roland, if not for the bag and the drums. Just feels like rare that Roland is not on top of it.
Yep.
Like, because legit, we talked about it earlier. Would Roland be able to, like, whatever, all these different things? But when it comes down to it, we were like, oh, well, Roland, or no, we mentioned it when we talked about the first trip wires. Like,
Yeah.
Roland has pretty sharp eyes, but here it proves that no, we were wrong. Roland would not have seen it.
He would not have seen it.
So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just, and he even mentions it's like it's car, it's luck, because the other part of it was there was a light gleaming off of one of the wires. So like if that light hadn't have been there at the exact right time, if he had to stop for the bag, if he hadn't have pulled his gun because of the drums and stopped, like all those things work together where it's like if any one of those things didn't, like that could have been the end of Roland there. He would have been Roland Jelly. Roland's bloodlust for Gasher is shared by me, and I remember hoping that his death would be slow and painful.
My only note is that I feel the exact same way, and I just wanted him to die in such a horrible fashion.
Yeah, like I'm just like, I don't want Roland to just cap him in the head. Like, they can't just be one shot to the head. No, it needs to be like a gut shot or shoot him in the leg so he bleeds out slowly. Like, it can't be. And I'm sorry, maybe this makes me sound like a terrible person, but Gasher is fucking horrible. I want the worst for him.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Absolutely. Carol says, "Here comes Roland."
Yeah. Let's see, anything else I missed?
They're talking about Jason and the Ted Lasso character.
Oh, okay.
And everything like that. How he needs to double down and reenact the slaughter of the younglings scene. They want to see that as a career move.
At some point, they're going to have to do an Order 66 and show us where Grogu was at during that whole thing and how that all went down.
They did.
No, they haven't showed us yet.
Yeah.
No, they haven't even, and they haven't showed us how he got taken away. No, they haven't. They haven't.
Have you watched all of Book of Boba Fett?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not in there, dude. Yeah, no. I think you're crazy, sir. But no, that's it for subchapter 20. And that'll do it for this non-spoiler section. So next up, of course, we have to...
Warning, spoilers ahead. Warning, spoilers ahead. Warning, spoilers ahead.
I love it. I
So,
love it.
yes, it is now moving into the spoiler section. It's funny. I just started I'm listening to a podcast on the new Game of Thrones show, and there's one I'm listening to where it's book readers, and they're talking through it, and they have like a long ass episode, but it gets to the very end, and they do the same thing, and they have like a spoiler section for people that haven't read the series.
Yeah.
And I'm very appreciative of it. I don't know what's going on with the slideshow here. It's acting all weird.
It looks fine.
Is it on the red screen?
It's not red. It says warning spoilers ahead and it has
Yeah,
the
no,
lights, but it's not.
it won't.
The background's not red.
I think it's frozen on me.
No, it's okay. The cameras are still working though. It looks like.
Yeah, no. It would just be the slideshow. It's like again Google. Maybe something happened to Google here because sorry I can't get over to the other slide. But either way, let's move over to the spoil. We are in the spoiler section now. If you're listening on the podcast side, no, everything just kind of jumped.
We're in a different slideshow.
No.
Oh my gosh! Whoa! There it is.
Yeah.
Red screen.
So that I guess there's a behind the scenes. Yes, I do use the same slideshow. There's just like sections or whatever,
Yep.
and I just flew into the last round table. Yes, see,
Whoa.
something's happening with Google. Everything just my notes flickered and stuff.
Like
too,
your Google
so-
Doc and everything like that.
Yeah, and then
geez.
and it's Google Slides is what we're using our thing through.
Oh,
so,
is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's something Google is going funky here. So jumping into the spoiler section. So if you're on the podcast side, sign off now if you haven't finished the 7 primary books. Come back if you want to after you finish the books. But everything from here forward, there is a potential that we will spoil things from the primary Dark Tower series past this point. So jumping in, what do you got here in the spoiler section?
Oh, right. I'm up first. I forgot. I had a moment where they split up that I was wondering, is this the end of either Eddie or Susanna? Was it or both? I honestly could see King killing both of them and resetting back to, all right, it's
Jake.
It's the boy.
Yeah.
It's Jake and Roland again. He saved him this time, but he
Yeah.
ended up having to sacrifice them. Wouldn't that just be like the cherry on top for Roland?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I wasn't as worried about as Jake and Roland. I figured the main character would handle that plot armor, if you will.
Yeah.
Thought King would make us worry about Jake and Roland, only to have another character die out of left field.
Yeah.
Still didn't have the fully farmed quartet as having, the full plot armor like Roland does.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before, is like, when did we fully accept each member? You talked about Oi today.
Yeah.
When did you fully accept each member as like the quartet? Okay, these are the main characters. They're not just
Yeah.
going to come and go. Because I don't think I took Jake as one when I read book 1.
No.
And
no.
when I was reading book 2, I didn't take Jake as one. I didn't know about Eddie.
And Jake wasn't around in book 2.
No, he
so-
wasn't. But okay, he's gone. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
He's gone. That's it for him.
Then we get to book 3, and suddenly the first book of book 3 is titled Jake. And we're like, wait, what?
Excuse me, sorry. What?
Pardon me, King. What the fuck did you just say?
I'm sorry. What? So, yeah. I
No.
could just. Can't you see King doing something like that to us?
Certainly, yes. Now, but I don't think I thought that at the time when I was reading it. I don't think I don't know. I don't know what I necessarily expected, but I didn't. I think the only one that I expected potentially losing was Jake.
Yeah.
But beyond that, no. I don't know why, but that just
See, the first time through, I
May-
remember
may-
being like,
maybe-
they're safe.
maybe Jake dying twice. Maybe just think, he could die again. He can come back again. So.
It's Marvel rules. He can just keep coming back.
Yeah, but like I don't know. Yeah. Otherwise, though, no, I didn't worry necessarily about Susanna or Eddie. I mean, Oi, like I said, at this point, I figured Oi is probably around to stay. But yeah. Anything? What did I miss in the chat here?
Mike said, to paraphrase Kyle Reese, listen and understand. That Roland is out there. It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse and fear. It absolutely will not stop ever until you are dead.
Yeah, for Gasher, and thank you, Mike, for quoting that perfectly. By the way,
Carol
As-
says, "Be afraid, be very afraid."
as a huge Terminator fan, and Kyle Reese is one of my favorite characters. Thank you. Yeah, you quoted
Yeah.
that perfectly. Sometimes people quote things, they quote it incorrectly, and I just it tweaks me a little bit. No, that was
Could've got that right.
That was
No,
dead
he
on.
got
In
it.
fact,
He got it.
And at one point, I way back, one of the first times you could actually use like sound effects on your phone. I actually had that as a ringtone. That's why I have
Did
it.
you really?
I have it memorized.
Yeah.
Just because I used to.
Honestly, that doesn't surprise me.
I used to have that play when I got calls or texts, something like that.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. After you've heard it 100 times, you just it's in your brain. So.
Mike just says that he copied and pasted it.
Oh, well, still. Thank you for doing that, not just typing it out and doing it incorrectly, at least. So my note here, my first note in the spoiler section, seems like Susanna's sight ability kind of falls off after this book, doesn't it? I recall her having the ability to create things like the Dogen later on, but I do not ever recall another time that she's granted visions into the past like this. Like we've seen it a few times in this book now, but it's like, does this kind of just does King give it to her so he has the ability to tell us about the town and all these different things, river crossing? But like, is there a time in book 4, 5, 6, 7 that you feel that she gets like these like almost supernatural insights into like the past?
Yes.
I don't. There's nothing.
Book 4. She asked Roland a question that Eddie and Jake hadn't even considered about Susan. She gets an insight there into Roland's story, and he hasn't even told her that part. It's one of the times, I think it's at the end of the story, and she asked him a question, and Jake and Eddie are both like shocked, like, what are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, and I can't remember exactly.
We'll have to keep an eye on it because ultimately, I do think that her power ability shifts because, like, ultimately, as the tail end of the series comes, she has the ability to create.
Right.
You know, like with her mind, she does the Dogen. Isn't even Mia part of that she basically creates Mia essentially, like to be the bearer of the like so just there's this she has this ability to kind of create out a whole cloth and stuff.
She didn't create Mia was inserted into her.
Well, she creates some other stuff. I'm trying to remember what
she creates. Dogen. She creates the controls in the Dogen that controls the labor. Like she dials back the labor and lowers the pain and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but yeah. So ultimately, it just feels like her ability shifts a little bit. I don't know. It just to me because every time I read this, I'm always just like, man, you don't really get this again. To be fair, is there any other instance where it really would have been useful? You don't really have like a Lud again where it's like, well, what happened? I mean, we get that with Kansas with the super flu. No, I know, and I think that's kind of what I'm saying though. Is like it, to a point, and again, it's not my general disposition, but it's kind of one of the things. Like, does she have this ability now to give King the ability to give us insights?
Yeah, because
in a non-obvious way.
This is only where it's needed is book 3,
and then after that,
after that, it's not needed because we're not looking at the past; we're looking at the present.
Yeah,
maybe she doesn't see the wolves coming and stuff like that, but that's because they're listening to Grandpa Jaffords tell them about the wolves coming.
Yeah,
we have an avenue.
But even there, it would have been interesting if she would have been able to have some kind of insight. You know what I mean? To play on this a little bit more, to have the consistency. Like it just feels like she has this ability now, and then from now on she does it. She has different abilities and like whatever. I mean, I love her. She's a great character. I think that's what Carol's saying in the chat. Yeah, unfortunately, King doesn't really give her very much to do, but I'm glad she's there almost to the end. She says she's one hell of a fighter, though. Lady Gunslingers unite. And I do. She's awesome, and I do think she has plenty of great. She's a capable person. It's just this power that we're focusing on in this episode. Even the rest of this, I don't know how much we get the rest of this book, and then maybe there's some insight she may get in book 4, but 5, 6, 7.
I really have one in mind where it's the end of the tale, and they're just like. Eddie and Jake are like, well, what happened next? And Suzanne is just like, it's obvious, isn't it? Like he did this, and they're like, what? And then they look at Roland, and Roland confirms that she's right.
But is that insight, or is that just that she's smart enough to, you know what I mean?
Isn't that kind of the same thing? Isn't that what she's doing here? This isn't really like some special Spidey sense that she's doing.
No, I think it is.
She's rationalizing. Oh, look, this is what I can picture.
The way King wrote this and the whole thing with the oxen at River Crossing, she's 100% seeing into the past. I think this is an actual like Spidey sense type. It isn't just like her being rational and going, well, these tracks are kind of wide, so it would have been a bigger cart, it would have been oxen. No, she's just like, and she doesn't even say it to the people, does she? Isn't it? She just thinking to herself.
No, it's all in her head.
She's like, no, this was carts and this was oxen. I don't know how I know, but it was whatever. And so to me, I think it is some kind of ability that she's got here to really see. And even like the Velcro fly we talked about in this episode, she actually hears it. And it's not that the tape itself is there and they're closer and she can hear it. No, she's hearing it through the past. She's able to hear again. Ironically, she doesn't know the song, so she's not going to be able to be like, oh yeah, Eddie, you're right, it is Velcro Fly. She's just like, oh, there's a guitar track, oh, there's the lyrics, and that kind of thing. So it's just interesting, and but then again, at the same time, she does have abilities, though. Eddie doesn't. Yeah. Right? Jake has the touch. Eddie is Eddie, but does Eddie really have like any supernatural ability like the touch or like Susanna to create and
sure.
What?
he could talk the devil into setting himself on fire.
No, that's not a superpower.
Dude, isn't it? I mean, I'm pretty sure he saves the entire quartet from Blaine.
No, and I'm not just saying this to like shit talk Eddie. I'm just saying that that's not a supernatural ability. That's an ability that normal people have. Not everyone, but there are people that have that talent to be able to, just to talk people, to convince people. Like, those are people that become leaders and politicians, or even just in their friends group, they're the one that just takes charge and they're the ones in charge, whatever. So I don't think that's supernatural. Is it an ability that he has? Absolutely. And he has like his humor. He has like his brotherly relationship with Roland that'll cause him to challenge him at every turn. Eddie has plenty, but I don't think any of it is ever in a supernatural way to where like Jake, it's like, oh, he has the touch, and Susanna, she's like seeing in the past, and then in the future she's building things in her mind that then become real. Like, I don't know, which is fine. It's just because Roland doesn't have anything supernatural. He's just a fucking gunslinger,
machine.
right? Yeah, and I guess that's the example I would say is like with Roland. Like, there's nothing about Roland that's supernatural. Now, is he above average in the realms he is he fucking great? Yes. And I think that's the same thing with Eddie. When it comes to his humor or his ability to challenge Roland, or his ability to talk and whatever, all those things, those are remarkable. I'm definitely not saying this to shit talk Eddie. I find it interesting of what abilities King gave, because he gave supernatural to 2 but not the other 2, and then there's Oi, of course. So he just has
Oi is supernatural. Oi's the best, and he was voted as such, so you can't argue that.
Let's see. And then my next note, is this kidnapping of Jake his gunslinger trial? Eddie had the key. Susanna had Shardik. They each had kind of a baptism into becoming gunslingers. Jake, of course, had been through a lot, even the mansion. But what we're seeing here is really him being pushed to his absolute limits and choosing to go on. Kind of wonder if this is his own version of baptism into it. And on the other side of this, he is a gunslinger just as much as Eddie and Suze. You know what I mean? Like, I just because it's kind of like Eddie, right? Eddie had the Balazar stuff, but that I don't think that really brought him into.
That's the drawing for Eddie.
Yeah,
which.
Jake
drawing
had his
exactly. The mansion.
Yeah, but the baptism into being a gunslinger,
Susanna's drawing is Detta and Odetta becoming Susanna.
Yeah.
So they each had a drawing and they each have a gunslinger trial. You're absolutely right. This would be Jake's trial.
Yeah, and
not his drawing. It's his trial.
It's his trial. And so on the other side of this, Jake is no longer the outsider kid that's still trying to fit into the group a little bit, because up to this point, Jake has never really felt as. Even the King writes it in a way where it's like Jake kind of keeps to himself, and Jake kind of...
He's not really a gunslinger.
Yeah, he's
a kid that's tagging along with 3 gunslingers. But after this, even in Blaine, just at the end of this book, and the beginning of book 4, dude stands up to a homicidal train, and he's just like, fuck you, and like all that kind of smartassery. That's a gunslinger.
Exactly.
That's where you start seeing gunslinger traits. You're absolutely right. I've never thought about that before.
Yeah.
This is Jake's trial.
And that's what I was thinking about, is the Blaine stuff, and then beyond that, when you get into the realm of like the story of book 4 and then into 5, he's a gunslinger all the way through. The rest of the way.
He stands his own. Look at him doing the Dogen stuff in book 5. Because really, like, book 4 is mostly just, the past. There's not a ton of stuff that stands there and everything like that. But even when it comes to like the wizard, the castle, Jake's standing there with him. He's not cowering and hiding and holding Oi for protection and stuff like that.
And Roland never really isolates him in a way to where like, oh, he's a kid, he can't be part of this. Like,
there's never a moment where Eddie asks him for his gun again or anything like that.
Yeah, no. So
not really stuff like that happens, and then. The Dogen, he goes after Benny Slightman's dad, and follows him to the Dogen and everything like that.
Yeah,
that's not kid Jake.
No,
that's gunslinger Jake.
Yeah, and I think like there's times that they let him be a kid, like with Benny Slightman Jr. and stuff. But I don't think that ever takes away from the fact that from this point after, once they get through this, Jake's a gunslinger.
Well, even Jake's frame of mind when you think. I mean, 5's my favorite book. That's why I know it. Maybe remember it better a little bit than you. But even when Jake's talking about playing with Benny Slightman Jr. and everything like that, he still knows that he's a gunslinger and he has a job to do. And even in book 5 is one of his best moments. You've talked about this, where he calls them all out on their bullshit.
Yeah.
Where Jake's just like, dude, guys, enough.
Yeah.
Come on.
Everyone's guarding their own secrets.
Yeah, stop it. We're a quartet. What is this? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely think this is Jake's trial. I love that. I like that a lot. That you can see the duality between drawing and a gunslinger trial for all 3 of them.
Yeah. And Roland.
Roland as well.
He has his gunslinger trial, so
yeah, and he's drawn too when he has the death of Susan. Yeah, and how does he go and save her, or does he choose the tower? You know, that kind of thing. That's
Yeah.
his drawing.
His is backwards though. He gets his drawing after his gunslinger. So his is a little
true.
bit backwards. But
That's
yes,
true.
yeah, ultimately.
Yeah.
Catching up in the chat, Mike says she is a human character to roll in cyborg level commitment to the tower. Carol says to Mike, mother nurturer versus mother nurturer archetype. Mike says maybe not archetype level, is just someone who grounded in feelings and compassion compared to Roland and his one-track mind. Carol says, yeah, except King literally used her to give birth, but I do get your point. Counter POV to Roland, which is why she only almost made it to the end. And then Mike says, right, she didn't push on because she knew it wasn't needed and she had the chance to get back to the people that she loves. And then Mike says, Roland kept going and thought it wasn't, even though it wasn't needed anymore, the tower is safe. And then Carol, and I agree with Carol here, how I wanted Roland to follow her.
Yeah.
Ultimately, and that's the thing is I've when it comes down to it, I do think Susanna is because like I think earlier we mentioned Eddie being kind of the emotional one, and I do think Eddie is the most emotional of the characters. I don't think there's ever a time that
he's the most emotional that wears it on his sleeve. Just because you don't show emotion doesn't mean you're not emotional.
well, I mean in terms of like
So-
more driven by emotion is more Eddie, whereas like I think archetypally if you have someone that's being kind of sexist, they would make the woman the emotional one.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that King didn't do that. It's more Eddie that's that. Because I think with Susanna, I really think she's a great balance of she has the compassion and stuff that Eddie would have, but she doesn't let the emotion drive her the same way. And I do think she has kind of that metal that Roland has more so than maybe Eddie does because she has that Detta in her. So
Yeah.
I think she has this perfect balance. But yeah, when it comes to that end, ultimately, that's where I've come to the same what you guys are saying in the chat here is that she's the smarter of she's really the guide for Roland. Like this is the way to go. Our happiness is here. There's Jake and Eddie. Let's go to them, not to your tower.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is she is the only one of the quartet that is not tower obsessed. Eddie says told Roland earlier in this book, if you die, I'm going. Like I'm going all the way to the tower.
I'm a tower junkie.
So he's a tower junkie.
Susanna's not.
No, Susanna never was. Susanna,
No.
it was always for her. It was always more about the relationship. She had her husband. I think she loved Jake. I think she even loved Roland to a point. But I think that's ultimately what drove her was more of the relationships, and I think that's what makes her kind of not damned. Right? Roland's damned, and Susanna is not because she at the right moment chose I'm not going to chase your fucking obsession. I'm going to my family, even though it's not the exact same ones, but that is them. And I know at some point we're going to adopt a dog that'll be the spiritual offspring of Oi. And so yeah, I do. I love it. Ultimately is that I don't think I got that early on in my understandings of things Dark Tower wise, but now I ultimately think, yeah, Susanna is actually the most balanced of all things. Like kind of, I don't know, kind of like I always think about it like the Corleones, right? The there's the whole thing about like the one from Godfather 3 that Andy Garcia plays, that he kind of has like the best qualities of all the four Corleone boys mixed into one, and that's why he's such a good leader for the future of the family. And I think Susanna might be kind of that. She takes elements from each of them to kind of be kind of the best center that I don't know.
She's got the badassery of Roland, shot Shardik in the head, took his antenna off. She has the compassion of Jake, and the caring that a young boy has. She has the rationale thought of Eddie and the ability to stand her ground in mind stuff. I mean, she solves the prime numbers things here in the cradle just a little bit.
Yeah, and when she calls
everything.
Roland out with the lesson thing, where it's like ultimately that felt very Eddie to me, right? Like because for a lot of times she kind of stays in line. She won't she may in her mind disagree with Roland, but she won't speak it. But there is sometimes though that she does, and she'll
call him
she's
on
like,
it.
"Fuck you, you're wrong," and I'm gonna fucking grill your ass for it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I love that.
She's the best of all of them.
Yeah, she's just like all of them have extremes and stuff, and I just feel like she kind of is the middle ground of it. So love her for that. What do you got next here? I think your note is next.
Yeah, so my next note, I wanted to talk about this a little bit earlier, and then I decided to throw something in the spoiler as well, because we talk about Ludd a lot, but have you ever wondered what kind of war like this was? Like, was this conquering, like, I want to take over that country? Or was this...
Well, the people at
kind of
River
thing?
Crossing talked about there was some kind of something happening that was causing people to flow into Ludd.
It's
And
because
then
an army was advancing.
And then Ludd was shutting itself off to
Right.
keep people like, no, you're not coming in here. We're locked
Right.
down.
why? That's not
I
not how it happened.
Yeah,
but why?
for-
Like, do you
for
think
me,
this is over? This isn't over. There's different reasons why countries have gone to war.
I think it was the world moving on type thing. That shit like the kind of like
so you think it's just like some barbaric leaders coming to try to take over the city?
kind of like I always picture Farson as just like this fire in the distance that's coming close to like coming closer and closer to Gilead. I just picture the same flames. Like maybe it's a different name. It's not Farson, but it's somebody else. But ultimately, there's just all these revolutionaries that are upsetting everything and bringing down the established structure. And I guess that, and I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying that's how I've always viewed probably the whatever conflict that led to Ludd in this.
You want to know
circumstance.
one of my theories is that Andrew Quick died and they had no leader, and so they descended into chaos.
Yeah, classic. Goes back
dude,
to
Alexander the Great.
Yeah, Alexander the
Dude,
Great.
think about that. He dies, doesn't name his successor. He's going out just to fly his plane. He's flown it before. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
Something goes wrong in his German aircraft, and he goes down and dies. And all of a sudden, it's, well, I want to take over. No, I want to take over. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, the guy who wanted to take over gets his ass beat and gets thrown out of the city. So he rallies an army. That's kind of That's kind of what went through my head this time when I was actually thinking about it. I'm like, fuck, I've never thought about Andrew Quick being involved in it.
Yeah. Well, until King writes us another book, we'll never know for sure.
Never know for sure. Joe Hill.
Or King, he could still write another book.
No, I like King's new stuff. I'm not gonna lie. I'm really digging Fairy
I do
Tale.
want one more Dark Tower thing.
I need one more, dude.
But
one
I don't
more.
know if it'd be Ludd though, man. I think if we do get it, it's going to be Jericho.
Oh
Hill.
no! If we get anything, I want Jericho Hill. That's still top of my list.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. My next note here, what I find really interesting about this world is that Gilead never felt entirely Middle Ages, but it did feel like a healthy mix of Middle Ages with some advanced elements. Hell, even Magus feels that way. But I never...
Electricity is always a big thing, where if you have electricity, it doesn't feel old.
Yeah.
But both of these places, Gilead and Magus, both had electricity. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but I never envisioned cars being a thing in Gilead or Magus. But here we've got city buses and streets and intersections and
Cars
whatever.
compacted together and then concrete on top of them.
Yeah, so it's just like then you get to Ludd and you have this essentially a 20th century city, New York City doppelganger. This world is a weird and interesting world for sure. But it's just I don't think I've ever thought about it before of like trying to compare the fact that Ludd exists in the same world as Gilead, because the way I've always viewed Gilead and Magus and stuff, and as we get into the next book, it felt a certain way. It felt like a cool hybrid of like it's old Arthurian whatever, and there's castles.
It's almost like it's a castle.
There's
yeah,
castles
exactly.
and stuff, but at the same time, there's newer developments of different things. And I think that's funny is they even talk about like the, we'll find in the next book is like, machinery for war, right? Like tanks and stuff and oil. And I think all of that felt okay with me in my mind of like fitting with Gilead and Magus. But again, that still feels a distant from, okay, we have war machines versus there's city buses and there's cars and there's streets. Ludd is a weird fucking city, dude.
It is.
And it makes Midworld feel like a very weird...
It throws a curveball into
It really
Midworld.
does.
What we've seen so far of Midworld is we've seen an Old West town in Tull.
Tull.
Hey, I got it right. I got it right. This
Very old West. Like that felt like
Yeah.
that, like the stereotypical Western movie where it's
Sergio Leone,
where it's like
in
one
one
street,
strip.
one street.
You got a bar, you got a preacher, and you got a stable.
Yes,
That's
stable.
literally the highlights of Tull.
Yeah.
Oh, and then a general store that Roland
Hopefully
fights through.
a haberdashery, I hope, as well.
And then we get the way station, we get the beach and wilderness,
Yeah.
and then this.
And this,
All the
yeah.
while hearing about the ancient castle
Yeah.
area
Yeah.
where they hang people for treason.
Yeah.
Um,
And nukes,
and-
right? Eddie was like, your people nuked themselves because there was like radioactive stuff, and there's these mutant animals. And stuff. So it's just
it's so
this
weird.
is a fucking weird in the best kind of way. I don't mean weird in a negative way. Weird in the best kind of way. But Ludd is a very strange curveball in everything we've seen so far. Because, like I said, have you ever pictured a car in Roland's World until we got to Ludd? I could say I have.
I wondered about cars in Roland's World simply because
With the Citgo.
in book one we have in book one
Yeah.
we have the guy who has the
With
gas pump. And,
Yeah, there's yeah.
Yeah.
But it felt so, I don't know. It's weird. It's so
it's weird to think
It's
about
so
a
weird.
car sitting there. Jack asked, just started Fairy Tale and enjoying it. Peter, would you spend a day in a room with a symbol monkey for more Dark Tower? Also, I finished Talisman, which was amazing. Talisman is amazing. I am not going to answer that question. because I wish if it becomes a legit thing where King's like, hey, I'll do it. No, absolutely I would. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot that I would do for more Dark Tower.
Fluffy from Creepshow.
Yep, I'd hug him.
That's all he wants is a hug.
I'd hug him.
So that's what I was telling you during our watch. All he wants is a hug. Then everything would be fine.
If I could get more Dark Tower, I'd absolutely hug whatever the hell that thing is. Animatronic,
Whatever that thing
person
is.
in a costume, whatever it is.
Fluffy.
I'd hug Fluffy.
One thing to our conversation, Mike says maybe people were fleeing the growing wastelands, which that's a
true.
really good point too. Yeah, because we're
Mike, don't speak for me. Don't vote yes for me. How dare you, sir? If there's anyone that shouldn't speak for me, Mike, it's you. You're always against me.
And then Carol says, oh, yeah, the horrible stuff. Blaine rides over, sweeping the lands, nukes, and other bad stuff. People try to relocate, and natural hoarding of resources falls. Because, yeah, that's true. It's not even just the radioactive. What about all the creatures that
That's
we're going to
true.
see in the wastelands? Like, yeah, I'd be running from that shit, too.
And when you have Lud right there, that's where you're going to run to.
Yeah, exactly.
Safe haven.
I mean, unless it's a zombie thing, then you
Yeah.
don't go to the big city.
No, you don't.
That's a trap. My last note in this spoiler section here, we see a lot of different kinds of people in this series, and all of them have edges to them. But are the people of Lud the most batshit of anyone we've seen so far?
Yes.
Or see at all? Like, is anyone compared to the people of Lud?
No.
I don't think they do, man. Yeah, there's just because like even like Toll, there was some like whatever. It felt like an old West town. There was some structure. This is just complete fucking chaos, mayhem, horrible fucking pubes versus grays.
we
versus,
get the
like,
whole. We get the whole. Well, it's his turn to ride the lightning. You know, you could just not kill each other. What?
yeah, it's just
What?
yeah. It just feels like if there's one area that feels the deepest in irrationality and savagery, it's this place. To me,
This
Like,
is what the whole series is based off of when you're comparing to craziness. It's like, well, yes, this is bad, but it wasn't as bad as Lud.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of the measuring
the
stick.
measuring stick.
That's what
for-
it was. That's the
yeah.
phrase I was looking for. This is the measuring stick for level of insanity. in
Yeah,
King.
it is.
It should be that way for all of King's work. Well, this is crazy. They're trapped under a dome, and there's a meth
What-
dealer and
what's-
some stuff.
what's the least-
That's still not as bad as Lud.
What's the least crazy in King's world?
The least crazy?
Like-
four boys having a summer going and looking.
No, I
at-
mean like town wise, like location. like,
in King.
yeah,
I mean
Boulder maybe.
Castle Rock.
I don't know. Castle Rock's got some shit going
Dude,
on.
Boulder is in a fucking super flu epidemic where 99.2% of all the world's population die.
Take it in a bubble though, and just say the community of Boulder, like on a scale from Boulder to Lud, like in terms of like we got to get the scale completely filled out.
what's
here.
the
what's the
completely,
other
like-
end? Yeah, what's the other end of just normal?
river crossing.
Because at least with
River crossing.
at least with Boulder, like the 99%, that's wiped out a lot of the fringe stuff to where it's like all that's left there is people that just want to like get along for the most, at least in the time before they move on.
Yeah.
Just in the small section of Boulder that we have, maybe that's the closest to like picturesque.
I mean,
King.
Arnett, Texas is pretty good.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, if we're going to take it in a bubble, let's take the Arnett, Texas in that little instance before Campion shows up
Yeah.
from Salt Lake City.
Or that freeway up in Idaho that Flag's walking down.
No.
That's a wonderful place.
No.
What's your,
Stop it.
What's your last
Stop
note?
it. No. Stop it.
What's your last note?
Every time I read this, it reminds me how much I absolutely and utterly hate Gasher and understand why he was so high on our most hated.
Yeah. The whole time I was thinking that same thing. It's like I remember him being on that fucking list, man. Because he is terrible. He.
I always
really
mix
is.
up Gasher and TikTok Man too, so I always hate TikTok Man, and then I'm like, fuck TikTok Man, and him running Jake through it, and I'm like, wait, that was Gasher.
Yeah.
Fuck Gasher. You know?
Yeah.
It's like I just change back over. But yeah, I absolutely despise Gasher so much.
Yeah.
There's no redeeming quality whatsoever. He is one of those deplorable characters that you just, if you put me in a room with him and Hitler and only give me one, or Hitler and Mrs. Carmody, and you give me two bullets, I might shoot him twice, depending.
I missed where Jack said that he finished Talisman, which is amazing. Then I
Yeah.
see everyone recommending him Black House.
Absolutely.
Yes, I highly agree. Black House, except do know that the very first, it starts weird, man.
Mm-hmm.
I had a hard time getting into Black House, but once I was past that first, I don't even know how much.
Yeah.
It just started to. I fucking loved it. So
It's great.
But I don't know why the opening is just strange. Let's see. And then Jack says, thanks. On a side note, I'm happy to say a friend of mine will start the first trip to the tower soon. Can't wait to talk to him about it.
Yes.
That's awesome. That's
Okay.
a good feeling.
The question is, how soon until they listen?
Oh yeah.
Listen to us, I mean, not the audiobooks.
Yeah, so that I think that is going to do it for this. Any other closing thoughts on this section? We talked about at the very beginning of the episode. We are going. I worked it out to where if everything goes to plan, we will be starting Wizard and Glass on May 20th, 2023. So I'm really excited about that. Not that I'm like whatever. I still want to get.
That's not a guarantee.
No, but and also
Times and dates are subject to change.
I don't want to say that like I'm like ready to jump over the because the rest of this book is great and I can't wait to get to it. And
I know book 4 is your favorite,
but book 4 is my favorite, and it's also there's something fun about a new book too.
It is.
Well, that was that with this book too. I love.
We're
book
in Wasteland.
Yeah,
Jake!
I love book 2, but it's like once we got to book 3, there was an excitement to it.
There's Jake and there's Lud and there's Blaine
Yeah.
and there's River Crossing.
And besides, it's years between starting new books. So whenever they start a new book, it's fun. So that's coming up quick. We only have we have a few more book clubs this year. But yeah, we're going to end up having 25 total for this book.
If all goes according to plan.
If all goes according to plan, we're on number 18 now. 25 will be the last one. So that kind of gives you guys all an idea of where we're at for this.
Yep.
So looking forward to getting Oi wrung like a dish rag here.
Stop
probably
it.
the next episode.
Stop it.
You had to know that was coming at least once.
I knew it. And that's why #Tad is terrible.
And we're gonna get to that section. And what are you gonna do? Like we can't.
I'm literally just going to bring a stick and just start smacking you. Because every time you're going to start laughing, I'm going to have to hit you, and then we're going to move on.
You know, earlier I almost said when we were talking about superpowers, I was going to say Oi's superpower is being elastic and coming back from being.
I thought you were
going to
say Eddie's superpower is getting shot in the head, but
No, I was going to say Oi.
I had that one in my head.
Oi, he can bounce back from being wrung like a rag. You know, he can come back from that. So yeah, that
This is all going in the podcast. Like you're not going to be able to hide this in the YouTube side like you usually do. Yes, he actually does make comments in the YouTube side like this all the time. But this is going in the actual podcast. So yeah, people are going to hear how horrible you are.
Oi.
You're a monster.
Let's go ahead and hit the closing stuff real quick. If you want to subscribe to us, you can do that on any podcasting service of your choice. You could stream us on Spotify or Stitcher. You can find the show note, or you can join us live on YouTube at youtube.com/DarkTowerPalaver. Or if you want to go on there, you can go back as far back as we've been doing live shows and watch the old broadcasts as well as we have like things like our reaction to the trailer for Firestarter. Hopefully we'll have some more short content coming in the near future. You can find the show notes, darktowerpalaver.com. You can support us over at Patreon at patreon.com/darktowerpalaver. And if you want to contact us and let us know any of your thoughts on any of this stuff or anything for a roundtable, Peter can let you know the ways to do that.
The best way to reach us is email. It's darktowerpalaver@gmail.com. Our social medias are the Twitter. It's @darktowerpod. That's @darktowerpod. And then our Facebook is facebook.com/darktowerpalaver. Instagram is darktowerpalaver, all one word with no spaces. Then check out our merch. You can pick up a handy #Tad is terrible t-shirt, poster, sticker, mug.
You still don't have a sticker on your...
No, I haven't ordered anything from TeePublic for a while. As soon as I do, though,
I've been
#Tad is terrible sticker will go right there.
I've been looking because I need to plan ahead if I want to get something for the Halloween theatrical for Halloween Ends. I want to get me a new shirt for that potentially.
There you go.
So I've been thinking about it. I haven't decided yet, but I've thought about it. And then maybe I'll have to buy me a Dark Tower or something. Not none of that. You know.
Also, 2 more things. Make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell on YouTube. Tad forgot that this time.
Yeah,
we'll get you there, man.
We'll get there at some point.
Second thing, also, I wanted to bring this up so Tad can not freak out. We are doing Dr. Sleep on our Patreon 2 weeks from yesterday. Is when we're doing it.
Yes.
We are doing the book portion, and then in October is the movie section. So go check out Patreon, or you can wait until November and then do Patreon, and you can binge all of the stuff that we've done before. Like Tad is so happy to remind everyone, yes, I had to watch Creepshow.
Yes.
We had cameras for me to watch Creepshow, so you're able to watch me watch Creepshow.
Yeah, which is great.
Which I hated, and I hate that we're going to do more stuff like that in the coming.
Oh yeah, The Mist is coming.
Oh, The Mist is bad.
The Mist.
Oh, you're going to see me. I'm going to need like a stress ball. Mrs. Carpenter. But that is all.
Oh, you're just going to do like the whole like over the top Carpenter. Oh,
I'm gonna keep a.
can you see that actor without thinking of Mrs. Carmody?
No.
You see her in other roles, you're just like, Carmody.
I've looked her up a couple times just to see if she's in anything that I'm gonna know, and I'm like, okay, we're okay.
I'm just waiting for her to like pop up in Marvel or something.
Oh boy. She comes on screen, I just go boo, and everyone's like, what the hell's wrong with that guy?
All right, but yeah, we're diddle dallying, but that is it for the show. On the podcast side, we will be back in a fortnight for Roundtable 127. Yes, 127.
Excellent.
But we will sign off as we always do by saying long days and pleasant nights.
Long days and pleasant nights, folks.
And thank you guys in the chat for joining us. You guys are awesome. It's always fun to have you along here. I see some emojis. Thank you, Carol. Saw an emoji in there. It's
Carol, if you're having issues with the Patreon, let us know so we can help.
Yeah, definitely. Let us know. We could try to get whatever figured out. Love to see emojis. Love to see all the conversation with you guys.
You stop it.
If only they could drop pictures of Fluffy in there.
See what I mean about him doing stuff in YouTube? If anyone's come over from the podcast side and listened to it, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Every single time.
I'm just thanking the folks. That's all.
I want to get a soundbite where it's hashtag Ted is terrible, and I want a button over here where I can push it.
Get a big red button.
I want a button that I can push for hashtag Ted is terrible.
No, you guys.
I want someone. I'm going to get someone famous to say it too. I'm going to pay someone on what's that website where you can pay someone to?
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Do like a shout out. I'm going to pay someone that you love to do it, and then I'm going to get it programmed where I have it wired into the soundboard and everything. When I push the button, that like Ewan McGregor, hashtag Ted is terrible, or someone like that.
General Kenobi.
General Kenobi.
All right. Yeah, you guys are awesome. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll be back in a fortnight for Roundtable 127. Got some fun stuff, hopefully, to talk about. We know we have some bummer stuff to talk about as well. We know Peter Straub passed away. So, speaking of Talisman, Peter Straub just passed away. So, we'll talk about that and whatever else is in the news. We'll be talking about that in a fortnight. So, see you guys then.
Bye, everyone.